time and space. The respect is there. And Kolemoen, and actually, the emotion.
Pajabol is your Gwent Master 2020, defeating the legend Kolemoen.
It all comes down to this. All right, there is a lot coming around the corner from 983 Media, Chris. Not just, obviously, Gwent duels. This is the inaugural Gwent duel between Kolemoen and Pajabol, but we've got another season of Gwent trivia that's in the back burner being brewed up as we speak. But there's some sort of Gwentfinity war that is coming through, the Civil War, the Nilfgaardian Civil War. You're going to want to stay tuned for that, friends. If you haven't already joined the 983 Discord, you can find the link in the chat. If not, Twitter at 983TV. Chris, lots of cool Gwent stuff from 983.
That's right. You can catch all the action on this exact Twitch page. I know some people in chat were mentioning maybe they missed the top of the broadcast. This broadcast will be replayed at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You're also going to be able to find each of these events kind of broken down over the next week or so on 983's YouTube. So plenty of places to check out all of this action, including that upcoming trivia, the Gwentfinity Wars. We have so much Gwent content coming to you right here at 983.
All right, so here's the deal, okay? We had Pajabol winning Gwent Masters. We had Kolemoen winning Gwent Masters, all within, a span of a few weeks there. So frankly, who is the real Gwent Master? We have devised up a little 1v1 for you. It is Pajabol versus Kolemoen. The Gwent Duels Ultimate Master is going to be decided right here, right now. Special rules. This ain't grandma's style of Gwent, ladies and gentlemen. Closed deck list. All 6 factions are going to be represented.
Now, Flake, I have met your grandmother. She was a heck of a Gwent player, but this is definitely not your grandmother's Gwent. We are talking best of 9. These players are bringing every single faction out there. They will get 1 ban based strictly on the faction. They won't know the leader. They won't have any other details but the fact that your opponent will be bringing 6 decks representing each faction as well. They're going to get into it. If these matches go to a tie, both players will be given a win. If we get to the final game and there is a tie, both players are going to bring out that banned deck. If for whatever reason that banned deck game goes to a tie, we're going into shootouts, friends. Each player will be expected to build a deck on the spot to compete head to head, and that will go on as long as it takes to determine a winner. We are going to find out who the true master is right here today.
Yeah, well, we covered all our bases again. It's good to have these situations, all covered and all squared away in case it happens. But again, enough chit chat. Let's go take a look at the decks here. Each player has, again, like we mentioned, brought in 6 factions, 6 unique decks, each one, something that the opponent will not know of. These are closed deck lists, so nobody knows what their opponent is bringing to the party. So they're going to be playing around stuff that they're not necessarily sure even exists. So let's take a look right now at the deck lists of each player. We're going to start with Kolemoen here, and we're going to go into a little bit of a more deep dive from match to match. No need to get into too much detail here, but Chris, let's walk through these. Again, there's all the 6 factions. We got Jackpot, Nature's Gift, Reckless Flurry, Inspired Zeal, Imprisonment, and Force of Nature. Any outliers? Just giving a quick glance over of these.
Taking a look through this, they feel like pretty solid meta decks. We're seeing Sunset Wanderers pop up a few times. Of course, Jackpot being, I think, and I mean, you were there at the last Open. I believe Jackpot was banned pretty regularly as the event went on, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that get nixed. Otherwise, Reckless Flurry, I love the discard package in that, including the raiding fleet to help thin with a couple boats in there. We've got Inspired Zeal focusing on duels plus that siege list. So, a lot of good stuff going on. I love the addition of Anna Henrietta in that imprisonment list as well. And then we've just got some some nice, wholesome cost force of nature on the monster side of things. So a lot of fun stuff here. Kind of feels meta, but it's going to be that head-to-head. Your opponent doesn't know your deck list, doesn't know what they're bringing. You know, we kind of saw it with some of the meme games where as the players were going through the game, they started to realize, oh, my opponent's playing this, or I should start to expect this. So it's not just how you start, but it's at what point does your opponent clue into exactly what you're running in your list.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to Kolemoen, or sorry, Pajabol. My bad. Pajabol's list. And Pajabol's going to be bringing Lined Pockets. There's a little switcheroo for you. I got Nature's Gift, Reckless Flurry, Inspired Zeal, Tactical Decision, and Chris, could it be White Frost?
I really like the change they made to White Frost. I don't know if it's quite there yet, but it's getting closer. And I think this is just a great example that Paya would trust something like White Frost to bring to this type of event. So that's going to be interesting. Let's not forget we've got commandos in this Inspired Zeal list. So we're not talking duels. We've got full test and we've got some commandos to put some of that pressure on. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Then we've got the similar Reckless Flurry list, Nature's Gift, Tactical Decision. We've got Colgrim, we've got Renew, we've got Letho. So there's going to be a lot going on in that list to track and follow as well. A lot of flexibility in that list around what direction to go. It's not just pure cloggers like we have seen in the past. And then the Lined Pockets list, which has a few little interesting cards in there. Things are a little bit different from what you would normally see, but it's a bit of a change from, again, that jackpot that we've been seeing everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much. Again, Syndicate in itself is just a very, very powerful faction. It got a lot of respect in the previous Open, as we saw. It is still terrorizing the ladder. There might be some changes to Syndicate coming around the corner. Who knows? We just know that it's slightly overperforming right now. It is a very respected faction altogether. No matter how you slice it, Syndicate can get the job done. But each player, like we said, they have no idea what the leader abilities are, let alone the deck list. So they're going to be banning purely based off of faction. So let's go to see what both players have decided to ban in this best of 9. And I don't think there's going to be too much surprises here as you see Kolemoen and Pajabol. Yeah, exactly. I don't think any of the players are really ready to just say, you know what, Syndicate's just a freebie. I'm not even going to let you have it. I don't know what you're bringing otherwise, but I know that Syndicate is just going to be a pain in my ass. I'm pretty sure that's what's up right now.
I don't want to think about it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't care if it's jackpot. I don't care if it's Lined Pockets. Get it out of here. So they're not going to be having to deal with Syndicate at all. Bringing those other 5 lists to the table to go head-to-head for the Ultimate Master title.
And speaking of Ultimate Masters, again, best of 9, closed deck lists. Let's get to it. I think we're ready for round 1. Chris, why not? It's time for Gwent Duels presents the Ultimate Master, Kolemoen versus Pajabol. It is time to see what the first matchup is. Reckless Flurry versus Tactical Decision. Kolemoen is going to be on red, Pajabol on blue, and these two lists over here, I like to see it. Both players running Sunset Wanderers, but Tactical Decision, Chris, is a list that I feel, you know, you've seen it a lot on ladder very much lately, but it kind of has its ups and downs. You can run the rinse version where you're kind of just thinning down to like 1 card and getting some you know, big plays late game. But this version is just the Colgrim version, but it's not just the Colgrim version, it's a Colgrim Renew version with Letho as some extra spice.
Exactly. So Letho can obviously copy your Colgrim to double that up at the end of the game. You can also use something like Letho on Snowdrop if you need to push out some big points, grabbing Tactical Decision and all that. So there's a few different ways you can go about it. You also have Renew, which means if you do have to commit, let's say, the defender early on, or you're playing Colgrim early on, things like that, you can always go and bring it back. However, I want to bring your attention to Kolemoen's list because running Raiding Fleet and the Ancrate Longships. Don't forget, Colgrim comes down as a very small 1-drop. And what happens with those boaty boats is they just snipe Colgrim off. So Cole is going to have to make smart use of those longships. And Paya's going to have to keep in mind that, you know, something like Coded Weapons might be necessary to remove that threat before going and throwing down Colgrim.
Yeah, or in this case, Kolemoen does have some answers here. You can always just go ahead and Axie the defender, and and Heatwave the Colgrim. I mean, if your boats get deleted, then you've got an outlet here. But again, it's not necessarily out of the picture here, because again, closed deck list, so perhaps Pajabol can kind of maybe look like he's playing something other than Colgrim. We're going to see how this goes. He might just pick and choose and go for the 2-0 if Kolemoen does not have the boats ready to go when he needs them. So why don't we let the players decide who wins this one? We're ready for game number 1 here at Gwent Duels Ultimate Masters. Let's go. Kolemoen versus Pajabol. Pajabol at the bottom of your screen with the tactical decision. On top there is Kolemoen on red, bringing Reckless Flurry. Both players are pretty much ready to rock and roll here. They are not mic'd up, and I promise you, even if they were, you would not hear a thing. They were laser focused in this one, as both players really just locked and loaded. Again, there's nothing on the line in terms of, you know, cash prizes. That's not really there, but frankly, friends, the fact that you beat the other Gwent Master means that you stand alone on top of the hill. The unification of the belts, Chris. When WWF acquired WCW, they had to have like a universal champion. That's what this is.
Exactly, Flake, and I think, you know, you hit the nail on the head, both of them. Look at that stare. They are focused. You know, these two are just such professionals that it doesn't matter if there's cash on the line or it's simply pride. They're going to give it their all, and I think we're going to see that happen here in this matchup as well. So interesting, you know, you've got the flexibility of bringing every faction to the table, and Pai is still starting on blue coin with Nilfgaard. A lot of times that's a little bit more of a red coin deck, and Reckless Flurry obviously on Kole's side, pretty typical for red coins. So happy to be responding with a lot of different tools, having some of that card draw and discard package in hand. We see him starting with the Scald here, but the change as well to the Tortoise on Nilfgaard's side has allowed that to be a better proactive play, only being 4 provisions, hitting the table and feeling pretty good, getting you ahead tempo-wise with those points.
Yeah, and one thing that this Nilfgaard list can do, tactical decision. I mean, it's always been a thorn in Nilfgaard's side. There, you know, for a while, you know, over the years, there's always been this sort of overarching complaint that Nilfgaard cannot really produce a lot of points from their bronze package. However, there's a lot, you know, the introduction of Blightmaker, for example, Chris, and cards that, there are cards that, the gold cards that you kind of want to play early for thinning purposes, you know, like Dead Man's Tongue, for instance, and cards like that really allow you to really tempo out. And now this tactical decision list, it's such a dangerous list in conjunction with Snowdrop being able to not only cycle your deck, but the other thing about this, Chris, is the fact that tactical decision with Sunset Wanderers, the amount of card draw you do allows you to put that Sunset Wanderer further back in line. So as the turns progress, as you draw cards, Sunset Wanderer keeps having this journey that it needs to complete. Another step, another step. You're adding extra elements, extra, you know, extra, you know, layers to where that card needs to get to. As Sunset Wanderers with Tactical Decision and Snowdrop just adds more runway to where how far it needs to go before it can take off.
Exactly, because Sunset Wanderers makes you want to play the cards to the left. However, your card draw will add cards to the right side of your hand. Let's also not forget something like Snowdrop on the board. When Sunset Wanderers does finally come down, it draws you a card, and that will add some additional points to that Snowdrop. So again, you get more synergy in the way you're generating points. And I think you said it well when you were talking about how Nilfgaard doesn't necessarily have all the ways possible to generate points with bronze cards. So you end up having to overcommit a bit early, but I think something like Sunset Wanderers can really help. Let's say, especially with a bleed in round 2, things like that can definitely make a pretty big difference. So Kole continued to do some of the draw things. Unfortunately, getting Coral after already drawing a couple other cards feels a bit bad. Not going to have the ability to do much damage with her, but again, it's the same principle on the Reckless Flurry side. Having Wanderers, you know, we've played a few turns. Those Wanderers are really sticking still to the left side of the hand of Kolemoen because he's continuously drawing into cards that are being added to his hand and pushing Wanderers over to the left.
Yep, precisely. Now, obviously, in having Coral earlier on is a much better option here, as you saw between the Heime Skald and the Burna brand coming through. That's points that are lost, and it's nice to see now. I mean, both of these these decks, if they draw fairly well in round 1, can really throw haymakers back and forth, as the discard package is really heavy tempo. I mean, with Burn a Bran, you know, drawing into those skirmishers, or the Morkvarg in conjunction with the Coral, who's just, you know, throwing fireballs at each discard that you're doing, you're not only cycling your deck, you're not only adding more runway to the Sunset Wanderers, but you're also slamming a lot of tempo. And one of the toughest parts about playing against this tactical decision list is the fact that it can just drop a buttload of cards on you, and it's just going to continuously cycle. And whereas a lot of players kind of have the strategy of, you know what, I'm on red, I'm going to play until that Sunset Wanderer is in a position where it might come out, so I don't necessarily need to worry about it in the future. So you might be able to pin your opponent to make a pass before the Sunset Wanderer drops for a lot less value. So ideally, Chris, you want that Sunset Wanderers to be as tall as possible, obviously, but you want it to come out usually in a decisive round like round 3.
Exactly, Flake. And a lot of times those Wanderers can be used, for example, to prevent a bleed in round 2, or to put extra pressure in round 2 to continue a bleed. And the fact that you can watch your opponent's hand, you can see where that card is located. It's exactly like you said. Maybe you look at their hand and you go, well, if they play one more card, that Wanderer is coming out, so they're more likely to take a pass. And here we're seeing some of that pressure on Kole's side, saying, you know, I can see where Paj is going now. We see the first Clog card come out. We see the Viper Mentor come out, so that starts to give him some ideas as to what's going on. We saw the thinning cards happen, but that could be a Rinse deck. That could be more of a hyper thin list. So again, every card played gives a little bit more information to your opponent. And as Kole's playing here, he's looking at Paya's hand saying that Wanderers is one card away from being played. So there's a very strong possibility that a pass occurs here, or they end up committing it this round. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. Let's also not forget that Paya went and used the Viper Mentor to clog a Heime, which in turn with Coral allows for another card draw. So there is a little bit more drawing and discarding that has been added to Kole's list, which may come out and be able to get them a few more points as time goes on.
Yeah, there's also been some situations, I mean, what I like about it is the fact that this new card, Sunset Wanderers, it fits into, it's a neutral, obviously, so it's going to fit into every single deck possible, but the fact that it's actually been quite viable and just, you know, it's so I don't want to say it's silly sometimes to not include it, but it's hard to overlook it in almost every deck you build that's non-devotion. The issue here is the fact that you can see when your opponent plays it, right? Because, you know, when it's their turn, you see the card shuffle to the side, so you know what to expect, and if you're paying attention, you can know when the opportune time is to push or pass, because you know when that card's going to be popping out. It's a card that it's not a surprise in any way, shape, or form. You know, not even the most keen-eyed players will know that Sunset Wanderers is there, because you see the cards kind of doing a little Texas two-step to the shuffle to the side when it's your opponent's turn. So being able to plan for it, being able to keep it in mind, and strategically pushing to get it out of their hand in a turn means that you might be able to buy around purely off the fact that your opponent highly values that card for late game, so they'll be less inclined to keep pushing.
Exactly, and then we see the Snowdrop coming down to add cards to the right of Paja's hand. Again, protecting those Sunset Wanderers from coming out too early, even though something like maybe Affin you would want to put back on top of your deck because it does come straight out to the melee row, you in turn decide not to because, again, you want to keep that buffer on the right side, especially because Kole is pushing to win this round on even. So we're seeing Kole take a look right now at their deck. Trying to see what was coming out. I didn't catch. Oh, there's Maxi. So again, you know, Maxi a great tool in this matchup because Paja is playing some cloggers, so that allows you to shuffle things around and get organized. But in turn, going ahead, bleeding and clogging the discard card again is going to allow Kole to cycle through their deck just a little bit faster. But again, we see those Sunset Wanderers on the end of Kole's hand, so it's getting a little dicey as to when they want to commit that final card.
Well, this is likely going to be a pass here for Kolemoen. He's going to take a bleed damage, and the goat effer in the front row for Pajabol is going to also tick up because of the discrepancy in cards. So I think he's got to take the pass here, even though he is up the points there. This is that situation, Chris, where it's like, do you want the Sunset Wanderers to come out now? It's not exactly the beefiest, whereas you know, Pajabol is still hanging on to his own Sunset Wanderers and leader ability with the Snowdrop on table. So I think Kolemoen is just kind of thinking, do I want to push? Do I want the Sunset Wanderers to come out here? Do I play the Coral, for example, and draw a card? Maybe I just, you know, you're not playing Coral and then discarding, you know, your Quen or your Heatwave. So to preserve the Sunset Wanderers here, I think you're just going to go ahead and take the pass. And as you can see there, 1 point makes the difference, friends. As we're going to move on to round 2 here. A very razor-thin margin for the first round, as there's still the leader ability there for Pajabol to, again, give a little bit more reach for that Sunset Wanderers. The problem is that if you're banking on those big cards, Kolemoen's got you covered. You've got access to your Axie, you've got the Heatwave, so you know Colgrim's not going to be a big problem. And it's going to be, you know, we're going to see how hard this push goes, and if Pajabol can pick up the cards that he wants.
And we've been talking a lot about Sunset Wanderers obviously being the newest card added to the game, but that first round was essentially determined by, do I want my Wanderers to come out? Because I would imagine without them, Kolemoen saying, I'm not in a bad spot to try and win this on even. I'm going to play that Coral. I know it's going to drive me a Skirmisher that I can then play again to draw and discard another card. However, having the Wanderers in hand made things a bit awkward. You had no other cards to really discard, and you were forced into a situation where, hey, I kind of just have to pass here. So it definitely does affect the way you play the game, the way you sequence your rounds, and it also draws you a card. So in a list like, you know, Reckless Flurry here is not too bad. We're not seeing Portal, we're not seeing bombs come out. So it's not as difficult, but you can run into situations where those Wanderers come out, draw you a card, and it gets very, very awkward. Because you can draw a brick, or you can brick something else in your hand like that Quen, let's say, if you end up grabbing your last Bear Witcher.
So here's that big play, and we're going to see Affin go back. We're going to likely see also the Mage Assassin, and this becomes the situation again. Now, the problem with this is that Kolemoen's doing a decent job of thinning out his deck as well. So the Colgrim is not as massive and as problematic as it may seem right now, as this might be a situation where on this bleed, Pajabol might just be playing to see that Sunset Wanderers come out, because there's no more, there is still card draw for Pajabol with the Heime, but the card he's going to discard, I don't think he's giving up that boat, and the card you're going to pick up here is going to be in front, or that you're going to drop here is going to be ahead of the Sunset Wanderer. So you're not giving any extra runway to that Sunset Wanderer to keep growing, right? So unless you're looking to ditch Quen, Heatwave, or that boat. But I think Kolemoen here, like you said, there's a myriad of ways to stop a Colgrim deck. Boat is one. Axie to get through the Defender, Heatwave, this is all part of there. So he's gonna hyper value those cards. And as you saw there, Pajabol got rid of the coded weapons.
Right, exactly. That coded weapons that could be used to remove the boat to prevent that Colgrim from just eating a shot to the face. But instead, you know, you've got some tempo plays. You're going to have no issue here keeping ahead, spending cards to the left. You probably do want to use Cynthia to clog. However, again, that brings the Wanderers out. You have to decide, is that something I want to do? Both players are thinning. Colgrim's going to be worth a few points. Double Colgrim with Letho will also be worth just a few more. That Renew sitting in hand as well right now. Maybe Snowdrop's the target and using that to further cycle some cards. There's quite a few different ways that Paja can go about playing out the rest of this game, but we're going to see the Wanderers come out now, and that's going to get Kolemoen back ahead, who will now threaten to keep the extra card here.
But like a perfect scenario here for Pajabol. Well, not necessarily perfect. I forgot that the Wanderers move at the head of at the beginning of the turn, because if he chooses right now, like the beautiful part here is that if you play Cynthia, you get ahead by 1, but your Wanderers gets out, so you're really ahead by 14, and it's a little bit much at this point. Again, you want to preserve that Wanderers, and again, this card is a little bit more, you know, dynamic in terms of how it affects the rounds versus just the amount of points it does, because like you mentioned earlier, Chris, it kind of sways players to take passes or to push. As we saw Pajabol push that round a little bit more and take the opportune pass to get their Wanderers out and maintain yours. And look at the amount of runway that this card has right now. You're going to be playing your Cynthia to open up. You're probably going to follow up with your defender, but he's opting instead to go ahead and take the mulligan there. Okay, so opting instead for the location over the Cynthia, but the reason for that, Chris, I think is purely from the fact is that you look at the difference in the decks. There's that Colgrim was going to be rather pedestrian.
Exactly. A 4-point Colgrim isn't necessarily going to win you the game. Paja made this decision based on, hey, I've got these Wanderers. I want to keep those 13 points. He values it more than values the card. But let's not forget, leader's gone. Cole's still got 2 leader charges left. So pinging things off is a possibility, though we see Junod in hand, probably not super effective. Some of these cards may not get a ton of value depending on what exactly how Paja goes ahead, plays out his hand, and what kind of interaction they're going to have, because, you know, Cole can ping away all he'd like at the defender, but at the end of the day, I think only that heat wave will be the true solution to that issue. And in that case, you don't have it for Colgrim later on. Though Colgrim coming down at about 5 points, 6 points is not necessarily something that, you know, isn't answerable. And we have to keep in mind, right? These are open deck lists. Closed deck list. So you don't know if they're running a heat wave, a curse of corruption, things like that you sometimes will see in Reckless Flurry. So you've got to be careful of a few different things, and you can't be confident playing, let's say, a naked Colgrim at 5 or 6 points like you could be if this was open decklist and you can say, yeah, you know what, the only answer is heat wave and it's already come out, so I'm good to go.
So in this case right now, I mean, there's 2 options you can do here. Kolemoen is probably thinking right now, do I use my Axie on this to get through it and never have to worry about anything? Do I heat wave it? That's another option as well, because if that Wanderers comes out and is hidden behind the defender, then your Axie is getting a lot less value than it otherwise would. The heat wave there is something we're going to renew the snowdrop, and that's an interesting move here, because you're going to go ahead and draw cards, you know, put some back that you don't necessarily need. That Colgrim is basically dead in the water here unless you keep that. You got to keep that that coded weapons. So the question here is, Pajabol's got to think, okay, where's that boat coming? Is it in his hand? You got to think it is, because they've cycled through their deck like straight away from the beginning, and Kolemoen is probably just putting a lot of stock in what that boat can do. And the other question here is, you know, as you can see here, he just got rid of that Colgrim. It is not going to be a factor.
So I was curious to see if we would maybe have a Letho, you know, on that Snowdrop, draw you 2 more cards, plays for 6 plus the 2 on Snowdrop as well. So to get a few points that way. Instead, it looks like we're probably going to see that location used for a Mentor, which could be worth some points. We're going to see Cynthia come down just for a 6-point body, but those Wanderers are what's going to make the biggest difference. Actually, keep in mind as well the fact that those Wanderers are going to draw either Letho or Colgrim. Now, the thing about that is you actually don't really wanted to draw Letho because you can't do a whole lot with it, right? You can't really tag that onto the Snowdrop. There's only gonna be 1 card left in the deck, so it's going to be a little bit of a mess. 10 points coming out, which is pretty huge for that Mentor, and that's going to go give a ton of points.
Well, that's unfortunate in this case right now, because again, that boat, you know, right, there was no mistake in the timing for that drop of the boat. As soon as that coded weapons came out and got the war crier there, Kolemoen just immediately insta drops that boat, says, all right, that's it for you, bucko. You've got none left. And you know, unless you got some magical, you know, something in your back pocket to deal with it, there's nothing necessarily that needs to worry here. And I mean, the hand that Kolemoen has, I mean, even though he is in the hole here by, what's that, 25 points, I mean, it's all going to come back to him shortly. The difference here is the fact that cards like Junod, I am still not sold on Junod in this meta. As you can see here, everything is buffed. So getting through to damage these low strength units that buff up like immensely is not exactly ideal, but there is the big one. And once again, Axie getting the job done. Goodbye, Colgrim. Insta deleted, shows up to the party and gets shown the door right away. Just no thank you.
And I know you mentioned you don't love Junod necessarily in this meta, but a lot of the times you will find a way, and in this case, Cynthia comes down. Not that it really matters, but 1 click of leader, 2 clicks of leader, you're guaranteed to get it. On top of that, the boat guarantees you
and the
that red
Hunter
number
in the back row, man. Like, there's just so many ways to do it. But the thing about it is that in this list, what else was there to target other than that Cynthia in this round? Because everything else was just top notch. And I mean, Kolemoen goes through here. Big win with 2-liter charges left on the Reckless Flurry. Never in doubt. Even when he was down 25 points, it was never in doubt.
The only other target you really have there is going to be leader, I would assume. Right? If you get Morvan out, there's a possibility that will come down and ping him off. But that's really it. That Reckless Flurry list is also a little bit different than what you typically see in the meta. Paja was probably sitting there waiting for a Madoc to come out at some point, waiting for a Portal to come out possibly at some point. So a lot going on there, and not exactly sure, again, with these closed deck lists, what's going to happen or how that Coley will be able to answer Colgrim. And with that boat, he found a way.
No, he definitely did find a way. And again, I mean, we could talk about Junot all day long. To me, I feel like it's a very meta-specific choice. It's good in the mirror if you're playing against another Skellige list, you know, against certain monster cards like, you know, Ratcatcheress, She Who Knows. These are always going to be fine targets. It's just, I feel like there's enough Nilfgaard out there. There's enough boosty style lists like Northern Realms, etc. that it's not exactly the best way. It's a very hit or miss card, but in this case, it found a nice home and brought Kolemoen a win in the first game here at Gwent Duels Ultimate Masters Edition. And the coins are going to flip here, Chris. Let's see what the second matchup is and what both players are bringing to the party.
Absolutely, let's do it. So interesting enough, you brought up the fact that Junot against some of those boosty decks can be a problem. Well, we've got Nature's Gift lined up here, and that is, again, traditionally something that's going to see a lot of buff. You've got your leader ability, you've got things like Dryad's Caress and Tempering and all of that to go give a little bit of extra fuel to your bodies, and that's going to make Junot a little bit more awkward. Now, this is a touch of a more, I'd say, traditional Reckless Flurry list on red for Paja. Having the portals did include Sunset Wanderers in this as well. You've got your Madoc, your Hjalmar, things like that. You're going to run your Megascopes hoping to copy a Greatsword, and then you've got the Dora Grey in there for a lock as well. And looking on the Nature's Gift side, well, we don't see a whole lot of ST on ladder, but I'd say this is about the closest thing to a meta list you're going to see. Once again, Sunset Wanderers crammed in there on the top end, not about to miss out on that than some of the usual suspects with your Onero, your Isengrim's Councils, your Shaping Natures, all to hope to end with a big fat Harrow Gourd at the end.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Knickers on steroids, right? When you're playing Sunset Wanderers, it'll show up at some point for a lot of points, draw you a card, replace itself in your hand. But yeah, I mean, we've seen this list before. We've sort of strayed away from what Devotion lists would look like. Oneromancy, Shaping Nature, they've got the Echo. You're going to be loading up that Gourd real hot and heavy, as well as cards like Avalok, which go ahead and spawn a special card of their own. Same thing with Forest Protector, little reoccurring action with the specials. But I like to say there's Swallow, just for fun. I mean, you know, cards like Pact. Nice to know you, buddy. We found Swallow is my friend now in this case. Cards like Pact, I mean, I guess they have the spell tag on them, which is helpful, but the fact that a card like Pact just got completely pushed aside, like, screw Doomed. Doom doesn't count anymore. But yeah, let's take a quick look again at the versus screen, see where we're standing right now. Both Syndicate lists have been scrubbed out, and yeah, we're at it right now. Kolemoen's Skellige list has made it through. Pajabol is going to give his shot now with Skellige.
Here we go, flipping those coins, but SK seems to be the list that both players are pretty confident on the red coin side of things. Coley bringing Scoia'tael on blue, not much of a surprise there. Typically a list that feels pretty good with proactive plays. Going to see something like Dunka in hand that's going to go ahead, probably get that attack advantage boost, even though Heatwave is sitting in a really nice spot in Paja's hand to go ahead and answer that. We're going to say goodbye to Gourd for now. We've got Romeo the Squirrel, one of your faves in Coley's hand. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to hit. Not much in the way of echo cards on Paja's side, but squirreling, let's say, a Greatsword to prevent Hjalmar from getting action on it can be a plus. The only thing is, once again, closed deck list. So Coley doesn't know for sure what he has to use that Squirrel on just yet. Gonna have to wait and see what kind of comes out and gets played here.
Oh, I got a tasty nut for you there, Chris. How about something called Maddock? What about you find a quick way to open round 2? Let's say, Kolemoen just jumps through here and wins this round. The opening play on that round 2 could just be eating that Maddock out of the graveyard. I mean, that's the home run hit that you're looking for if you're Kolemoen in this case. Again, it's not like a straightforward thing where, you're eating an Ownermancy or something. Greatsword is awesome. Do not get me wrong. It's a fantastic play. In fact, you could possibly move forward here, and when the Greatsword comes down, if it's not protected with damage, if it just sits there at 4 or 5 health, you kill it with a Nature's Rebuke and follow up perhaps with a Squirrel to eat it out of the picture. But there it is, and just like all of my games, Maddock just decides to not behave, sends itself to the back row, gets a little bit of social distancing going, but Pajabol's going to finish the equation there, drop one of the Reckless Flurries, and get Dunka out of the game.
I completely blanked, despite the fact that I just said Maddock was in this list, completely blanked on the fact that Squirrel will answer that nicely, just needs a good opportunity to do so. And again, the fun part about closed deck list is that Pasha doesn't even know that Kole has that in his list, let alone in his hand. So not necessarily something you're playing around, though it's something you consider playing around otherwise. In this case, gonna have to just try and keep playing those points, staying ahead. Something like Portal could come out from Pasha that would go ahead, help the thinning aspect of the list, and put a lot of pressure playing from red coin, since that kind of initial opening play from Kole was answered so nicely. Dunka getting very, very little value and leaving Kole with few points on their side of the board.
So this Sunset Wanderer game, Chris, is a little bit different than the one we saw before. I mean, as both of those Sunset Wanderers sort of slowly make their journey to Mount Doom, there's not going to be a lot of curveballs thrown in front of it. As before we saw the Reckless Flurry list that brought the discard package, put a lot more real estate in front of it to get it bigger and bigger. Same thing with the tactical decision. The draws from Snowdrop, the draws from the leader ability allowed for that Sunset Wanderer to really grow out of control. That's not the case this time, as neither player really has much card draw potential. So it's going to be a different story. So the tactical pass, the timely pass here, it's going to be basically who can kind of, bite the bullet and have those diamond hands to hold that card, or who wants to just let it fly at 8 or 9 strength or 8 or 9 power and make it happen. The problem here, Chris, is that every time you play a card to the right of Sunset Wanderers, it makes it a little bit worse. So it's such an intriguing and layered card in terms of how it not only generates points, obviously, but how it sort of tailors and sways the behavior of the players in terms of what cards they're more inclined to play and when they're more inclined to push and pass.
Exactly. And I was just kind of laughing, chuckling to myself, because it's very rare that we see Kole make any type of emotional reaction, but we definitely got a bit of a chuckle out of him when that red haze came down. Again, not something you typically expect to see, but comes out, does some damage, a lot, actually taking out an 8-point Hamadryad. We finally see the Squirrel come down, except the Squirrel is such a low tempo play that you're going to be in a situation here where, well, do I want to lose on even and keep my Wanderers, or do I play something and potentially lose my Wanderers next turn, next time around? That Dryad's Caress, let's say, onto a Hamadryad would have been a nice tempo play. Kind of stuck in a situation here where I have to play something to the left to keep the Wanderers in my hand. I don't know what direction to go.
The pass here is not the worst for Kolemoen. You are going to lose on even, but you're also bricking that fish fucker in this. Oh my god, I said it. Whoopsie. The fish flapper in the deck. You're going to be bricking it there because Pajabol is going to take the pass, and it's going to leave that adept in the deck. So that is, a little bit of silver lining to this equation. But if you look at the position of the Wanderers. One is one step away, and the other one still has 3 cards, now 2, ahead of him. So quite intriguing how these things kind of play out, right? In terms of where you're playing your cards and making these things happen. But not a bad pass there from Kolemoen. I don't think he was going to get back, considering there was still another adept that was going to fire out from that from the portal. So there's a little bit of less there's a little bit less certainty in the deck for Pajabol because there is a 4 provision card floating around, but it is what it is. And still no establishment in the deck for a great sword, and you see those 2 megascopes just waiting to pair up with the big boy with the sword.
And that's exactly it. You've got the megascopes, let's say, in hand. So worst case scenario, that fish flapper comes out and gets boosted by the Megascope, so or creates another one. So that's an option you've got there as well. But sometimes those Wanderers simply come down to where you draw the cards in your hand. And you have to look at, hey, what side of my hand is a little bit, stronger? What side is more likely to see play earlier on? So it can come out in a whole lot of different ways, but I assume here we're going to want to see, and typically this Reckless Flurry list does a whole lot of work. We're going to see it, pretty significant bleed here. Looks like Paj is trying to figure out what will come out proactively, what they're going to look to do here. And it seems like the location is possibly the best bet since Greatsword bites into Rebuke pretty darn quickly here. But nothing really coming out of location is a ton of value because that Quartermaster is just as fragile when it comes to Rebuke skis.
Yeah, everything's pretty fragile. Everything you're going to drop out there is going to get kind of, put out to pasture here. I mean, the Bear Witcher Adept might be your best option, as it is going to eventually heal up. But I think that Kolemoen just might go ahead and just, delete this real quick. The problem is you still have a turn to deal with it if you want to. Now, Pajabol can always click the button on the location, and yeah, there it is. I mean, fish do flap, Chris, but they also do the other thing I said. I think, kind of. I mean,
well, we don't know that for sure.
No,
we
well,
don't
they sort
know
of
about their preferences regarding fish and other animals.
I'm not here to fish kink shame or anything. I mean, the true National Geographic version of this is like they kind of, one lays the eggs and the other goes on and sprinkles some magic over them, and voila, we have fish. But yeah, I'm not a scientician, so I'm not gonna get deep into that. But here we go. I like this play over here. Again, we're gonna go ahead and just stay ahead of the picture here. Put a card that's a little bit out of range. Now, is there an 8-point card in Pajabol's graveyard? Because this might be an option for you to use your Yalmar. And where else are you going to use that Yalmar that's really going to get this kind of range, especially since you're already hanging tight with the Heat Wave? I feel like if you're going to get rid of something, that might be something that you want to get rid of with the Yalmar. But the other question is you can always just bleed and take the pass and not even worry about it, right? Pajabol needs to evaluate here how deep he wants to go into this round, knowing that, we already saw there was the council. Council was used. We've got a big Hamadryad on the board, and there's still a Fish Flapper in the back row that's just going ahead and getting buff. Heatwave is the answer, apparently. I have been proven wrong, but there she goes.
I can't remember if it was Tia or Lion saying during their little prediction piece, talking about the fact that, casting these guys is great because they constantly prove you wrong. And I think that was one of those situations where, yeah, you could save that Heatwave for later, but why not put the pressure right now? And that has Coley just coming back, removing the Fish Flapper. But that Greatsword coming down now with a little bit of a boost makes for a less awkward play. And you mentioned your Hjalmar earlier on. Well, the fact that the biggest thing you have in your graveyard is actually the Fish Flapper at 7. Less than ideal. You'd love to see this Greatsword out here. You've got the Greatsword. You go ahead, you drop the Megascope on it. You've got a 10-point play out of it, and they end up in your graveyard, which makes you feel so much better about Hjalmar coming out a little bit later on to maybe mop something up that gets a little bit bigger. Maybe even those Wanderers as they come out. So there's a ton of value in just setting up your graveyard properly. And at this point, Magic can just keep throwing bronze cards. Not that they have a whole lot left in their hand, but you don't really care. You're on even. You can bleed for as long or as little as you like and still come out ahead and feel pretty good about the situation.
Now, wise person once told me that the best way to clear the board is to pass. So that was always an option here, is that you can always just drop garbage on the board, let Kolemoen just play his cards. Because look at his hand. His hand is stacked. But I think Pajabol is also just playing cards here to just sort of test the waters to see what Kolemoen has. And maybe he preserves the Wanderers. The problem here is that Kolemoen still has a free play to make here and not worry about the Wanderers. Sorry, no, Pajabol is gonna have the Wanderers come through here. And swing and a miss there with those Reckless Flurry charges. As you see, the Sorceress did live on, so it's gonna force Pajabol to make another play, as we do see the Wanderers finally get to the end of their journey and show up on the melee road, drawing another card. There's another Greatsword. And I think now it's safe to say that we're probably going to see a bunch more cards be played from Pajabol. At this point, the 20-point lead, you still have some bronze cards that you can play down, and maybe you go into round 3 with something like Hjalmar, and your Quen. But I mean, the problem here is that your leader charges are gone, and those could have been significant.
Exactly. I think that was really unfortunate. Hoping for some RNG love, which obviously we did not see there. But I think there's no question that that Megascope comes down, giving you another 10-point body. And the other thing about it is, you know, you're dropping that down, and something like Avalok in Cole's hand loses a lot of value if you play that on the other row, because those greatswords just love absorbing damage and coming back out. And there it goes. Speak of the devil, that greatsword is gone because Cole knows that that Megascope comes down and does a whole heck of a lot of work, dropping another 10-point body down. So by answering that, makes it a little bit awkward. Also, by heat waving it, does not allow it to go into graveyard for something like Hjalmar, and just takes the pass, knowing that Cole's going to have to go and throw something else on the board. Goes and grabs a circle, gives a little bit of a hand buff. Interesting here that they wouldn't go for, let's say, Shaping Nature, which would automatically bring it back in round 3. A little curious as to why that would be, but maybe they feel good about drawing it into their hand here.
Here it comes. There's a Shaping Nature, Chris. Knew it all along. Why not?
Gotta play with confidence, Flake.
Absolutely. Of course you need to hang on to that. So there's the Junaut, I believe, in the hand of Pajabol. So here's the problem with this card, Chris. What are you hitting with that? I mean, your number one target is obviously likely going to be that Avalok, but how are you dealing damage to that to make that happen, given the fact that, hey, we just went ahead and used all of our leader charges to go ahead and kill that sorceress in a round that we didn't even win. I mean, yeah, you went up the cards you needed, but there is the bomb. That is a dancing star, not the ideal bomb to have, but you know what? Against Shaping Nature, Chris, there's going to be so much tree action on the board. It's, you know, it's going to be Lord of the Rings all over again. We're taking the hobbits to Isengard, but yeah, the Ents are coming with us, and there they go. See, now it's going to start getting lined up. So with a little bit of luck, we might see Pajabol actually get a pretty decent dancing star here. But the problem is that you're looking to do the damage to the Avalok. But the good news is you still have that Griffin Witcher to go ahead and hit it. The problem again, I know I'm just stacking problems here, is that you're doing 3 damage to a unit just to kill it again later. This is the issue with Junaut, I find, with this list, is that if you're packing in 3 points of damage into a unit, your Junaut is now less valuable, because now your Junaut's a 9-point card when it could have been potentially an 11-point card.
And that's exactly, I mean, it comes down to how these sequences happen, right? You know, there's so much that went on that affected how this game has been playing out. Cole's Squirrel answering Madoc, for example, could have possibly given Paja another opportunity to go ahead and do some damage to that Avalok. Unfortunately now, yeah, you're just going to have to wait and hope for Avalok to be in a position where that Dancing Star can maybe pick off a 1 or a 2, so you're not wasting all 3 damage on it. Now, Cole has been burnt once in this game by the Red Haze, so one has to imagine that, you know, they've got top of mind the fact that there are going to be more bombs that I'm going to have to deal with. This Hjalmar here is playing for a good amount of points, even though that Greatsword is not available.
Yes.
That Fish Flapper removing 7-point body, but with 4 vitality charges on it, so does a lot of good work there.
Bye, trees, says Hjalmar in this case. I mean, they show up as like little 1-point saplings, but that was going to eventually lead, you know, it was going to go ahead and take down the Tower of Orthanc if left to its own devices. It was going to happen, Chris, I promise you. But instead, it turned into that tree in the 2 towers. Remember the one that like was on fire when you have that like sort of, you have that wide panning shot of the Ents, and finally sort of that dam bursts and all the water comes through. There was that one tree that was caught on fire and just douses itself in the water to be like, anyways, I felt bad for that tree. Insta removal right there. That's a great use of Nature's Rebuke. Kolemoen is still hanging on to a 9-point lead, but man, it's not just about the points in this case, Chris. It's about the card differential as well, and I don't think you're getting a better Dancing Star than this, frankly.
Well, and that's the thing, though. Do you want to sit here and do you want to wait and potentially see if something else lines up at the end? You're going to get the 3, you're going to get the 1, so you're going to get a 4-point Dancing Star, which is, to your point, about as good as you can get. However, do you want to try and risk it and try and get a little bit more out of it? Or do you feel good about it? Quen coming down here a little bit early.
Well, the problem here is that Cole's still holding on to the Forest Protector, and there's no protection from a position of actually just rescuing points off of, or like healing points off of that Bear Witcher. So that Megascope needs to find some value. So I think what Pajabol's doing here is just sort of hedging his bets and saying, well, I can't let this Megascope be 0, because the only target it had otherwise was going to be what? It was going to be the Bear Witcher that's in hand. That's going to come in. It's going to damage itself down to 5. And Pajabol was probably just, Kolemoen was just probably going to come back and say, all right, well, I'm just going to kill it with this Forest Protector. So if you do hold a Megascope, you got no target. In this case, however, you've got a situation where at least you've got multiple targets. And if you're going to go for the Quartermaster, I mean, it doesn't matter about what the shield in that case.
Exactly, doesn't matter. But unfortunately here, I would tend to assume best case scenario, you're hoping for that Bear Witcher, but that Rebuke will answer it right away. The placement for Avaloq was actually quite smart from Cole's side, not wanting to play into that Dancing Star. That Dancing Star is going to do some work though, still going to play for 5 points. Junod will go ahead and remove. That Megascope does have to come down next, I believe, if they want Quartermaster value. Or can it at all, for that matter?
Oh, it's not getting any value. That's why it was might have been a curious case there in terms of the Junod. But you had to use the Junod there because there's so many different cards that were going to potentially boost it up. And,
that'll do it.
That will do it. As we see there, not even close once again. Kolemoen, even down a couple of cards, says, all right, well, let's just put this one way out of reach for you. And that's what we've seen it in the past. Kolemoen has just been fearless, even down a few cards, either in the bleed situation, going down 2 cards into round 2 just to bleed, or in situations like this, where down 2 cards round 3, I'm just going to put this one way out of reach for you.
And that was a wild ending to that game, because it's just like we said, that Reckless Flurry list does have some awkward interactions. You have to sequence things properly. Heat waving the Greatsword in round 2 was huge and prevented the Megascope from being played and that bleed from continuing. At the same time, it prevents the Hjalmar in round 3 from getting full value, and Paja did the best that they could to get value there and did find a nice way to do it. But again, now you still got that Megascope in hand, and like you said, Flake, that can't be 0 points. But once you start getting to those last 2 cards, you play the Megascope, and now you're going to get a Quartermaster that you can't click, which in turn, again, is losing points because you can hit the armor. So that Quartermaster could have easily been at least 7 points, would end up being 4. And just too little too late. That Dancing Star without Madoc, again, just not really playing out to be all that much. So the lack of Squirrel, or the Squirrel removing the Madoc, made a huge difference. That Heat Wave on the Greatsword made a huge difference. So just little nuanced plays that don't seem like anything special at the time really came back to help Cole out at the end of that game, where he could just slam points with Gord, with Forest Protector, and just feel really good about it.
And once again, that Junod just felt pretty lackluster in that case. Again, it's a hit or miss card. Certain matchups, it feels like $1 million. In others, it's just rags on the ground, right? In this case, that was it. It didn't necessarily get everything it needed to, and there was always the risk of just boosting up that Avaloq out of Junod range. You have no more damage left at your disposal, pretty much. So the Junod, you take the value where you can get it, and at that point, the Junod playing for that many points, it is what it is. So that's it. Kolemoen is up 2-0 here in Gwent Duels, the Ultimate Masters edition. Let's take a look. We're going to go right into game 3. These players were pretty razor focused when it came down to facing off against one another, so there's no need to wait. We're just going to go right into game number 3. Love to see it. It's powerful on red. It's powerful on blue, Chris. Inspired Zeal is what we're going to get.
This is not exactly a mirror matchup either. Obviously, the leaders are the same, the factions are the same, but Paja's bringing commandos here, whereas you're going to see more of the dueling plus siege on Cole's side. Now, the only reason I wish this was flipped is that those commandos on red coin can really abuse if the hand is drawn nicely and things work out properly. They can really do a whole lot of work and put your opponent in a really awkward situation, especially if you get full test down as well. And that's why you run the cursed scroll, right? You go in, you get full test, you start making copies of those commandos, and Cole Devotion may have to commit one of their dueling cards in round 1 just to make sure that that does not happen. So I'm excited to see how this plays out. I've always had a soft spot for Commandos, so I'm very curious to see what those interactions are like in round 1 and what kind of momentum that takes them through the rest of the game.
All right, let's go take a look at the scoreboard. We're already pretty deep into this one. 2 games are out of the way. Kolemoen with a commanding 2-0 lead. Again, this is a best of 9, so it's not like Pajabol's really up against the ropes just yet, but you figure that he's gonna probably want to come back and start counter swinging here. But Kolemoen has gone through with Skoyatel, has gone through with Galaga. So the S's are gone, given the fact that Syndicate is not even available. So all the S's are off the table. If this was a Wheel of Fortune game, I mean, you get that one for free in the final round anyways. Moving along, though. Let's go take a look at the game. Here it is. It's Northern Realms versus Northern Realms. Inspired Zeal on both times. And Chris, this is something that's pretty fascinating when it's a closed deck list, because just seeing the leader doesn't necessarily tip you off too much to what it is. Is it Siege? Is it multiple... is it multiple duels, like triple duel style list? Is it Commandos? Is it a hybrid of 2 of the 3? There's so many different ways that you can play this.
Exactly. And so, you're looking at it and you're wondering exactly that. Am I going to see full test into either Commandos or into Dun Banner possibly as well? Also an option. I know I was speaking before about how Commandos on Redcoin can really get out of hand. However, Cursed Scroll really helps with that consistency. Not that Paja needs it. He has all the tools in hand that he'd ever want. If you drop Defender, full test, and put Commandos behind that, I can't imagine how Cole is going to deal with that. I don't see a single dueler in hand, so that's going to be a big challenge here. I think Pash is in really, really good shape to get things out of hand, and I think if you're Cole at this point, you're probably considering getting out of here after just a couple cards once things are established.
Yeah, it's pretty much here's the beginning of the end when it comes down to a commando list. I mean, this is pretty nasty to look at. It's like, all right, I see where you're going. Defender, there's the other piece, and we're probably going to see the Commandos coming through pretty ugly. How do you get through that? I mean, that's the problem. We don't know what they have. It's not like Northern Realms really has that many purification options when it comes to getting through your opponent. So if Paya's putting Koli on Devotion, that's pretty safe, frankly. I mean, how do you get through it?
90% of the time, I mean, you've got to assume that Northern Realms is going to be Devotion, especially when you start seeing, the cards that are coming out here. So you just kind of sit here and you go, well, what am I going to do about this? I'm going to play one more card and I'm going to pass and try and get out of here. And,
yeah.
You were talking about it before, right? Paja down 2-0. It's not the end of the world. This is best of 9. You do have to win 5 games, but you have to wonder, losing the first 2, you need a little bit of a momentum swing. You want to feel a little bit better about how this is going to play out. So you want to go and you want to get that win, come back, get things a little bit closer and try and use some of that momentum to go ahead and push through. This is just as much of a mental game at this point because you are playing so many games when you're trying to get through every faction that, you've got to have a little bit of mental toughness and fortitude on your side as you're going through this.
As we see it now, it was always a big debate when it comes to what leader ability. Is it the consistency of pincer maneuver that you want to rely on? Is it the sort of burst potential, especially with Commandos? You obviously want to lean on Inspired Zeal. But so a lot of players now have kind of leaned more towards Inspired Zeal, but have switched up Crystal Skull to have a Cursed Scroll instead. That has seemed to be a little bit more consistent. It has been a little bit more helpful in terms of you don't necessarily need the tempo and the protection if you're running Defender, to go ahead and protect your full test with Crystal Skull necessarily. And another thing I like here is the fact that you haven't called in the Commandos. You're just going to go ahead and let them build up. So we might see Commandos in 3 rounds.
Passion not even caring about the passing. I'm going to make me some Commandos. going ahead and just grabbing more of them. Now, I have personally lost track of how many exist in the deck, but there's got to be at least, what, 4 that have come from full test, plus the other one in the list that wasn't clicked. Plus, we see Roach in hand as well, who's going to go ahead and, if can be activated, generate more. Plus, you see another blue stripe in hand as well. So, even being down the extra card to go ahead and make it another commando, I don't think Paja cares all that much. It's going to have the ability to bleed and put pressure here, regardless of the situation, and going to feel really good about it. And then you've always got the option to use Pavetta, bring them all back. You got the option for Siege as well, which is obviously not in hand, but that Oneiromancy goes to get it. And on Kole's side, we finally see a dueler. So we do have Anseus on that side. We've got Varaxis to get a second duel in, and there is Siege just coming right out and saying, we're taking this real serious here. With that Siege, just going to continuously put pressure on to Kole.
Slam it in there. Best time to play Siege is as your first move. But yeah, I mean, we have not seen the commandos being assembled, right? I mean, they were just built up. And Pajabol is running Princess Pavetta, so there's a good chance we're just going to see them all multiple times. You just go ahead and you do have all 3 Zeal charges ready to go. Rosh is there. Slam it in. Zeal. You can bring everyone out. It's a party. Fire away with all of your the rest of your cards. You got Siege pumping, no problem. And then you go to round 3, and hopefully you could just do it all over again with your Oneiromancy. So who knows? I mean, it's Inspired Zeal, friend. It's Commandos.
Ooh, Ansea's coming out early to answer the Treb here, and I mean, for a good reason, because there are quite a few cards that would like to go into the back row. But wearing this thing down is going to make Varaxis awkward if Kole decides he wants to use a second duel. Let's keep in mind, John Natalis is in hand. That does go get AA, and AA is a big part of tempo plays for NR. So grabbing Natalis, using that AA to try and get ahead could really open up a whole lot of trouble when Rosh comes down, produces that commando for free without the Inspired Zeal charge, and just uses it the second time around to go and get out a full-fledged list of commandos that are all hiding out in the deck. And then Pavetta comes out to play commandos all over again in round 3. You're essentially playing triple commando without having to rely on Renew. Siege, though, not doing a lot of work point-wise, but in the way of getting resources out of Kole's hand, it's been absolutely huge. We've seen Anseus come out. We've seen Varaxis come out now. So 2 of them have come out. 1 dueler left. But we also have Siege still in Kole's deck. Now, can that Siege overcome a whole truckload of commandos is the question.
And when it comes to dueling versus commandos, I mean, commandos, it's this kind of like the tall punish versus the wide, right? I mean, it's
oh
my
boy.
Oh, hello. Oh, hello. And you still get that hang on to one of those Zeal charges, but the boys are back in town, Chris. There they are, man. And like you said, being able to quote unquote triple commandos without Renew, the fact is that when you see that setup that you can't touch, you got the defender, you've got the full test, here comes the commandos. You just want to kind of bail on it because you don't necessarily want to play into that, knowing that at the click of a button, Pajabol can call in the entire commando swarm and win that round. The downside to that is exactly this, man, is the fact that check that out. All those commandos are now in round 2, and you haven't seen Pavetta, and you haven't seen, any of those tutors kind of wheel in again. So this is going to be problematic. You're looking at a big deficit. There's the first amphibious assault, and Pajabol, look at him. He's like, num, num, num. Speaking of tasty nuts, amphibious assault is on the menu right after this, my friend. That squirrel feels really good when you've got, what is that, a 46-point lead? Sorry, 36-point lead.
When you don't care about tempo and you just want to squirrel your opponent's AA, you feel real nice, because on top of that, it barely matters. Look at that bombardment coming down, give an extra ping to the ballista.
Oh, hello.
Hubert's here to help. Do you guys need my help? I think we're good. Yeah, but I'm here to help. Up by 35 points. Let's just add a couple more to the total.
You know he is?
In a really bad spot.
Hubert's that guy that is like, yeah, I'll help you move, but shows up after all the work is done.
Yes.
He's like, oh, yeah, he moves 1 box, eats the pizza, and says, I helped.
That's exactly it. Hubert's there for the pizza and beer. That's all he's there for. But ironically, not that it matters tremendously, also bricked the back row so they can't move the battering ram back there. So you know, that's a couple points lost on Paja's side. So the you know, the what is it, 38-point lead is looking a little bit questionable at this point. Gonna see the Marine come down, give a little boosty boost.
Yeah. Let's just, you know, let's throw it in there so I have double digits on point value. I mean, it's a tough thing to look at here. There's the massive play. But I mean, that's huge. Like, let's just be fair. You just ate a big card, and you know, when you're basically just swimming in you know, a 35-point lead, that's perfectly fine, man. Throw down Benny, and then he'll eat the AA, and we're feeling good about ourselves, as literally the remainder of Kolemoen's hand is just bronze stuff.
You look at this and you almost go like, as Passion, do I even bother playing the Boiling Oil? Like, do I even want to play more cards into this? Because Cole is going to need to spend his entire hand to catch up, if he even can. I'm not going to do the math. I'll let Cole do it for himself, because it's looking pretty dire. It almost wonders, do you just let him play his cards, save the extra cards, get card advantage in round 3 if it matters? This is ugly.
This is the other side of the coin. This is the guy who shows up for the move to realize that no one else showed up and he's got to do all the work himself. He's like, oh, come on. Steve said there'd be more people here. What the hell, bro? He shows up. That is not where you want to be if you're Hubert, just walking into this gauntlet.
I don't know if it's that Hubert or if it's that correct Marine, because with a casting contest, that Marine's going to come back again and again. So it's doing the work of 4 people, but in reality, it's just still not going to be enough. The worst part is now spending these siege engines. Cole used one in round 1 as kind of a throwaway card, using both reinforced ballistas here. I don't know how many more siege engines are in the deck. So even if he does get to round 3 and is able to play siege, then what?
Well, I mean, when you say the worst part, I mean, a row of commandos in one turn is a pretty bad thing as well. I think dropping a siege engine here and now, you're down 23 points. You've got a Marine, a Radovid's Royal Guard, a casting contest, 2 leader charges. Man, I'm feeling like it's going to take some work here. Now, the good news, Chris, the good news is that at least you got 2 ballistas that are going to give you a little bit of help every turn. I think, frankly,
Yes.
at this point, I think Kolemoen's just thinking, is there absolutely any way that I can get out of this in 2 cards, let alone 3? And if I can get out in 2, can I do it with my leader charges? There's a whole lot to think of here.
I think with some quick math, it is possible with 2 cards and 1 leader charge, I think. Because now you're going to play for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So yes, 1 more card. So you'll get away with coming out on even cards. So
Yeah,
that's
well,
a thing.
That's 7
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, plus 1
2 leader charges will get you there.
2 leader charges gets you there. My bad on the count. I thought there was an extra reinforced ballista ping there. There was not. Now, the question comes down to, can Cole draw siege and 2 siege engines? Paja still can use that Onero to get Pavetta, but needs to draw Pavetta or AA, otherwise has no way to get the commandos out.
No,
Never mind. Never mind.
Yeah, it's gonna be
here have Pavetta as well.
Yeah, just get the whole crew. Why not? No, it's gonna be news team assemble for Pajabol here. Oh, well, that's not all that helpful, frankly. But I mean, look at this. It is just unreal. Hey, look, Shawnee's here. Hallelujah.
If it wasn't for the fact that Paja can pull, I don't know, like 9 commandos out of his deck, I think that Cole's hand is actually quite nice. It's not bad at all with what he can do here. Unfortunately, it's not going to answer 40 points worth of commandos popping out of the deck on turn 2.
Yeah, Shawnee's a great card to have. Gerhardt, fantastic. You even got a couple bronze support there if necessary. But hold on a second. Yeah, maybe you could deal with 1 unit, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5, Chris. Can you deal with a whole row of bros who are just ready to chat it up in the background, you know, they even dress the same. That's how bro they are. They all wear the same onesie. But yeah, I mean, listen, you don't know. Stranger things have happened. Obviously, with cards that have echo and the amount of tutors and such, you're pretty much, you know what's coming. As you can see here, there's Kolemoen like, All right. Okay. Well, I mean, he's up 2-0, so this is not going to sting as bad. But I mean, Paya is he's kind of getting back into this one. There's like really not much else that you need to worry about.
Now, this is just muscle memory, just going through and dropping the commandos.
Oh, hold on a second. You can patience this out. We've seen this mistake be made in a tournament earlier where you do not have the patience yourself. The card has patience, but the question is, does Kolemoen have patience as he can go ahead and wait up for that tremors? The thing is do the commandos come in last and avoid the tremors? Because, I mean, Pajabol sees it. And the other question is, frankly, does it even matter?
Well, I mean, using an Onero to get a ballista feels somewhat questionable. Tremors is what, 6 provisions?
6 provisions. So you're at 4 right now, I believe. Sorry, you're at you're
5 right now. It would be next turn. So actually, that would line up very nicely, assuming
if he
Paya
doesn't now.
wait.
But
But
I mean,
I think you do.
no. Well, you could just go ahead and you could just reinforce. You could just toss the reinforcements, but you could just use the reinforcements, I believe, on your ballista.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's no reason to do it. You don't know exactly what your opponent's playing, but you definitely don't want to risk it. And Cole's not even going to go that line, going to assume that those commandos are probably coming out last. I don't know if any of this is really going to save the day.
I've never seen a 5 provision spell that was worth about 50 points, but who knows? Maybe in the new patch.
That's 5. Forbidden Magic's worth 5.
Hey, look at that! Suddenly, and yeah, we're just gonna burn that card.
Has to discard has to discard that because there's literally nothing to play it on, and I don't think it matters. 26 points.
Well, the Ratifids Royal Guard gives the student a hat, and here we are. Blue is deciding. What are we deciding? Well, how about a gigantic commando fest? The whole line.
All
massive. Dear God, Chad Parade online as Pajabol goes through, takes one from Kolemoen in the mirror match. Commandos outschooling the Banard and the dueling. That was not a bad game. Again, Pajabol played that one exceptionally. It's one thing to say that, damn, Commandos can just jam out points, but the fact is, you got to set it up. It takes work to do, Chris. I know that you've played Commandos in the past. It's not my cup of tea necessarily, but the fact remains is that in order to get 9 Commandos on a row, you got to do some work. You got to set it up early, and Pajabol did that, got the cards he needed, and Kolemoen took a pass in that round, and Pajabol said, all right, let's go to the Commando factory.
And that's exactly it. You know, Commandos... Curse Scroll helps significantly because while Commandos are solid, card draw can be a bit awkward. I did mention that the only lose condition there, I think, for Paja was to miss the AA or the Pavetta. Yeah. Of course, he managed to draw both because he is a talented lad. However, missing one of those can really cost you the game. So Curse Scroll helps a lot at the beginning because you're guaranteed pretty much your defender, your full test, and a way to generate Commandos, and then you just go to town. With Kole playing a devotion list, really the only option you have is to play down to 7 cards and just get lost because really there's nothing else you can do. You can't remove, you can use one dueler to maybe get through full test, but with the defender there, it's just not something that can happen. So you're really stuck in a situation where you just have to eat it and hope you can outpoint, and then with a solid bleed, because again, Paja, being heads up about it, didn't go and pull the Commandos out, said, I can use these guys later. And sure did, made a huge point differential in round 2, forcing Kole to play cards until he just had nothing left.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to those purification cards, you got Kudak, but Kudak doesn't cross the board. No. He stays on his side of the board, holds hands with his partners on either side, and wants nothing to do with their opponent. All right, we're going off to game number 4, Kolemoen versus Pajabol. Pajabol back in this one. It is now 2-1 for Kolemoen. Kolemoen going to be on blue coin. Let's take a look at those deck lists that either player is bringing to the party. Ooh, we had 1 mirror match, Chris. How about 2? Imprisonment versus Tactical Decision.
Now, that Tactical Decision list didn't quite go so well for Paja the first time around. Kole had the boat that answers all problems, solves all problems. We're not going to see that here. There is no boat that is going to one-shot Colgrim. However, you've got things like Masquerade Ball, you've got things like Yenvo, so you can do some dirty things on Kole's side as well to prevent too much of that from happening. However, one of Nilfgaard's just consistent issues is the fact that it lacks consistency, right? So going and clogging a whole heck of a lot could be a little bit more challenging. We see things like Dead Man's Tongue, we see Roderick to go be able to tutor out cards. We see Joachim there to do some thinning. So pretty classic list on Kole's side. That imprisonment can very much come in handy if he can hold on to that all the way down to Kolgrim. So we'll have to see how this plays out. Anna Henrietta, keep an eye on her in Kole's list. Tactical decision is going to be worth, at least 7 points off of Anna. So that's a 10 for 9, not bad at all. We've got Sunset Wanderers on Paja's side, so that's going to be controlling how exactly he goes about playing his hand in round 1.
Okay, so here's the thing about this, is the fact that, Anna Henrietta might have better options in terms of what it wants to hit, but against the clogging list, picking up tactical decision to be able to go ahead and fix your hand, to draw and then bounce a lot of these cards that are out there that you didn't want to pick up, not to mention Dead Man's Tongue, just going through your deck and just pruning out the garbage that was just tossed your way. So Anna Henrietta on the leader is not going to be necessarily points the traditional way. Yeah, it's going to be 7 points for the body, but you're going to draw your cards that you want, you're going to cycle through your deck and prune out the garbage that was just dumped on your front lawn. So this should be a pretty intriguing matchup here, given the fact that Yen's Invocation can go ahead and scoop cards like the Defender that's out there, and then that might give you an option to jump in with perhaps cards like Masquerade Ball with the with the poison to go ahead and kill the Kolgrim. This is a fascinating matchup. I have not really seen this one all too much. I have sort of strayed away from Nilfgaard this season, so I haven't played one or the other, and this matchup, I don't want to say it's a mystery to me, but it's definitely intriguing.
Absolutely. So let's get into the game. Before that, let's take a quick look at that versus screen. We've got Kole up 2-1. Kole's ST and Skellige has gone through. Paja's Northern Realms has gone through. Now let's not forget the fact that Kole has beaten this list before, which means he has seen this list before. In closed deck list, you cannot forget that not knowing every detail of your opponent's hand does make a difference here. So we're going to get into the game. Keep it in mind, Kole's got a little bit more information than Paja does, though I will imagine that it's not going to take too long before he figures out exactly what Kole is running here.
That is an excellent point, Chris. You would be the scientician between us, for sure. The fact that Kole has a little bit of an advantage for the fact that, hey, I saw this list already. I know what it's Kolgrim. I know that there's Letho. I know what to hold on to. I know how to answer this stuff now. It's as close to open deck list as you're going to get if you're Kolemoen, but in this case, if you're Pajabol, you don't know what those potential aristocrats you might see. Is it Fergus? Is it Anna? Is it Vincent? You can usually rely on certain cards. Like, there's going to be a Masquerade Ball, most likely. Usurper is going to be in there as well. Brothens is a mainstay. Joaquin, Coup de Grace. These are all cards we're going to see. But there's a little bit of wiggle room there to have some impact cards that are a little off the beaten path. And usually it's a matter of, do you play something like Fergus? Do you play Vincent and downgrade a bronze card? So those are the things that Pajabol is going to have to keep in mind in this closed deck list scenario. But the change to Masquerade Ball, Chris, right now has kind of led players to pack a little bit more aristocratic punch. The bottom end of the deck, so Van Morlem Hunter and Thirsty Dame are very popular, but I have seen some seditious aristocrats out there as well sometimes.
Seditious aristocrats are just nice because you can play them after the fact. The dames need to be on the board to gain value. However, if you're playing multiple spies, which it's Nilfgaard, they're going to be running them, those aristocrats get that boost even if they're already on the board. So it's a little bit of a back and forth, a trade, depending on what the makeup of your deck is. And like you were saying before, you're going to see the same consistent standard cards, but there's always going to be those little tweaks. So, you mentioned before, do you have Fergus, do you have Vincent, or do you have, for example, the Cantarella package to play Joachim 4 times? You don't know all the details, even though you've got a pretty good overview of what's going to be happening. But Kole here on blue starts with that Sergeant, gets that Sergeant clogged straight away. Proactive plays are looking a bit questionable, but you've always got Blightmakers in hand where, only playing for 9, not getting the 2 damage, 9 plus thinning, it's, I guess, kind of okay to open up the round. You've got the option of playing a Thirsty Dame as well if you want to just go proactive, but I feel like there's a strong chance that gets clogged again if you go with that.
Playing Blightmakers on an empty board, it's like you're ordering the super value combo, but you're not upsizing your fries. Like, that's basically it. You still feel good about it, but, you're not getting everything you might want. You got the Happy Meal, but you didn't get the toy you wanted. So, you know, been there, done that. I've lived through that tragedy in my life. But you do have a Menno. Menno here can grab you Imperial Diplomacy. Is in terms of the spicier picks of building this list, looks like Kolemoen dropped in 2 times Imperial Diplomacy. You like to see it. You like to see that. That's not bad, as the Tortoise is, again, the change to the Tortoise. It's now a 4P card. Drop it in. Tortoise has gone through the ringer here a little bit. It's been in and out of relevancy, and I think right now, as a 4-drop, you know, poster child for power creep, that's what we're seeing here. 7 for 4. If you're not doing it that way, friends, are you really playing the game?
Exactly. So, I mean, we talked about it in the first Nilfgaard game that they needed some bronze to, you know, get ramped up a little bit. So conditional 7 for 4 because you put 2 damage onto that and all of a sudden it's playing for less. But, you know, maybe this is a Blightmaker turn where you come out, you get the ping, you get the thinning, you do the damage, you get the boost. It feels pretty darn good. That's exactly what we're going to see happen. And, I mean, Cole playing the Imperial Diplomacies is interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up because that is always an option with Menno since you have coup in hand, so you don't feel bad using Menno for something else. And maybe Cole did think, hey, I'm coming into this game or this situation figuring I want some more versatility because I might need to play different decks on blue. And in this case, that makes Nilfgaard feel a little bit better on blue, knowing that, hey, Diplomacy gives me some proactive plays that I can throw down on the board early on if I have nothing else to play and my hand is more reactive.
That Kolemoen just broke the game wide open by not only playing an 11-point Blightmaker, played a 12-point Blightmaker.
That's true.
Why not?
Plus thinning. Don't forget the thinning.
Right, the thinning just helped out over there. It's a Blightmake off right now as one Blightmaker calls on another. Are we going to see a follow-up? There's a good chance that Kolemoen might just go ahead and play the other Blightmaker again. Just dropping that in is not the worst thing in the world, as there's still plenty of cards here for Kolemoen to play. I mean, you've got the Menno. You know, you don't necessarily feel terrible about dropping, you know, your Duchess here onto, like, let's say a Tortoise. You can also play the Duchess to play onto the Blightmaker to just put up a card to the top of your deck if you want. I'm just taking a look here what you might want to bring to the top as Kolemoen. What do we got here?
What just happened,
a whole lot.
Blake, what just happened?
What did I miss? I was looking somewhere else.
That is a masquerade ball.
That is a masquerade ball, Chris. You are absolutely correct. Oh, hello. That was I was literally looking at the deck list. I come back and the entire apartment's on fire. There goes masquerade ball. Why not? You want to win this round. I mean, let's be fair here, Chris. A lot of this comes down to the fact that you're always staring down the potential nonsense of Snowdrop into leader ability into a gigantic Sunset Wanderers. So that is give my regards to your balls, Kolemoen. That is a major play to commit there. As look at all the thirsty dames as well. Why the hell not? There's a lot going on right now.
That's exactly it. So thirsty dames all over the place. You do have the cards to go ahead and do some aristocrat things. So you don't have to worry about that. Jamming that on blue feels weird. Feels real weird because, I mean, Paja could just pass. In this situation, obviously not passing makes it more interesting because you do feel the need to win round 1, right? If you're going to be clogging your opponent's hand and they just dry pass round 2, that gives them full set of mulligans to go ahead and just try and clear things up. And you don't want that to happen. So maybe going out here, deciding I'm going to spend ball. I'm going to make sure that I don't get clogged going into round 3. I can dry pass, feel good about it because I win round 1. Here we see the pass.
Well, the pass is there, and Sunset Wanderer is still in hand. Renew is ready to go. You've got your leader ability. You're going to be drawing up some cards. I mean, this could be anyone's game here as we see Pajabol, you know, just pass. Like we said, the best AoE in the game is just taking a big fat pass. Here we go now. We're going to be going into round 2. Again, Kolemoen did go ahead and just commit some big pieces there. And, you know, don't leave it to me to go ahead and say, is that a misplay? I mean, these are 2 Gwent World Masters champions. So you got to give them a little bit of faith that they're just not just tossing this away. And fortunately for Kolemoen, the hand that he went ahead and mulliganed into was pretty weak. So we're going to be relying on other ways to get through this. As Kolemoen now, 2 Mage Assassins in hand, a bunch of bronze garbage, hasn't been able to go ahead and filter through what he needs. There hasn't been all of the big stuff that you're kind of hoping for. So these mulligans are pretty self, words, man. They're just words. As unfortunately, Kolemoen, you could see it on his face. He's like, okay, let's see. It is time to make a mosaic out of this, like, how do I fit a frame around this paint that I just spilled on the floor, right? Like, you got to make something pretty out of this. It is just terrible. And there, again, like I said in previous broadcasts, there's a Mountain Dew joke in here, but I'm not going to make it.
We like keeping sponsorship options open, Flake, so please do not speak ill about any brand for that matter. We have no shame. We will take any type of sponsor there is. But going back to the game is exactly what we were talking about at the end of round 1, where playing ball, I know I need to win this round. If Paja clogs me and I get to the point of losing round 1, even if I don't lose uneven, I still go into round 2 and have limited options to get rid of some of the junk from my hand, as Paja's going to continue to put more pressure and continue to clog my deck. So taking round 1, no questions asked with Masquerade Ball, gets you to round 2. Unfortunately, Kole just drew back into all that clogged junk that was put in, and is going to miss some of those goals. So hopefully Roderick plus Ku can do some work, because I feel like that's pretty much the only way he's going to get access to things like let's say Joachim, to get some of his big point plays out on the board.
Now, it's little tiny details like this, like the fact that the Jin is not a token, right?
Yes.
And with the new changes of certain cards, the fact that the Jin is just a flat out, it's a citizen, baby. It's got full status. It exists as a card. It ain't no token. It shows up as an actual card. And there you see, as Kolemoen gets to stare at it for another 8 turns to realize that it's like, oh right, it's not a token. Oh right, it's not a token. So he's gonna have to live there and exist with that. Now, interesting point here is that there are 2 Mage Assassins in Kolemoen's deck. The problem here is that you have a Duchess that can only clip 1 card in Pajabol's hand, which is that Blightmaker. So that is the best thing that you can hope for. However, the Blightmaker hides behind that defender, whole different ballgame. Now, keep in mind, there is an Anna Henrietta here that can go ahead and fix a lot of this hand. This is what I was talking about earlier, Chris. It's not necessarily the value of the points that tactical decision is going to get you with the Anna Henrietta. It's the fact that you'll be able to clean out some of the garbage. You're going to toss away the Jin. You're going to toss away perhaps even the Duchess and some other garbage that you pick up. So we'll see how that all kind of shakes out here, as that it all kind of comes back to the fact that round 1 Masquerade Ball seemed, it seemed, I don't want to say questionable, but it was definitely intriguing.
Well, again, I like the line of play. It was just so important to win round 1 to not allow cloggers to continue to clog your hand. Unfortunately, Kole drew into them anyway. So like you said, Morven will give you the opportunity to go ahead. This is unfortunate, by the way. Drawing into a Fangs of the Empire, for example, would feel pretty darn good right now. But you got tactical decision that will go ahead and get you Morvan, get you to cycle back your hand. The problem is you have 2 charges of your own leader ability that you can't use on anything, right? So that's 6 points sitting there you don't want to forfeit. I wonder, can you Blightmaker? I believe Kole runs Yenvo. Could you Blightmaker Yenvo to the top, get the carcass, drop that, and then use your Fangs to finish the poison on the defender?
Chris, you magnificent bastard. The problem there is they're probably going to drop some garbage in front of it, right? To go ahead and actually just block one of the poisons. I don't think you're ever completing poison on this. But again, Anna Henrietta is going to allow you to fix your hand. But that means that Kole is going to have to dump those leader charges into a lot of armor and stuff that you don't necessarily want to see. And now...
Wait.
Oh, well, that's a coup de grace target, perhaps.
That is a coup de grace target. You've got the ability, and we've seen it in the opens time and time again, using 1 leader charge to steal something like, let's say, Harold with coup. This gives you the opportunity to do it twice. However, What do you prioritize? Do you prioritize, let's say, something like coup on that? Do you prioritize coup on Roderick to get you your cards instead?
Yeah, I think you
That's
gotta
the thing.
I think what you're fishing for here is a Yen's Invocation to just get rid of that defender. I think that's what you're hoping for here because you can probably go ahead, use your Anna Henrietta later to find more cards to maybe complete a poison on one of the big boys that Payabol's going to be using. It's a tough thing to digest here. It's not straightforward. It's a puzzle for Coley here as he's kind of trying to figure it out. Because if you go ahead and roll with Roderick, pick up the Yen's Invocation, scoop the defender, there's a whole bunch of other options now that you can use on that lock. You can lock the Colgrim when it shows up. I think getting rid of that defender, scooping it up, then using your Anna Henrietta to go ahead and find a second poison might be the way that you go here.
I think that's totally a great option here. Dropping the Jin makes it a little bit weird when you steal tack decision, because that's probably a card you want to shuffle back. Looks like Letho's going to have to be dropped on the Snowdrop because I believe that, on Snowdrop because Colgrim was put back in the deck. Definitely going to want Colgrim here with a difference of 9 cards, so that's going to be worthwhile for sure. You do still have your Mage Assassin in hand as well that you're going to want to put on top of your deck to bounce that out. You still have Wanderers in hand as well that's going to just continue to wander to the edge of that hand before falling off for a good amount of points. There is Yenvo.
But there's also a poison.
That's a Purify.
Oh, or a Purify. Both are good. Why not? Now we have access to everything. This is a beautiful situation now. If you're Kolemoen, this kind of opened up options for you. So once again, I believe there's another Fangs of the Empire floating around for Kolemoen. But there we go. There's the Snowdrop and double dipping again. 2 Snowdrops on the board. We're going to fix our hand up real nice. We're going to put the Blight, so we're going to put the Mage Assassin back most likely. I was wrong. We're going to go ahead and put the Sheep Effer back in, and once again, there's still a couple steps left for that Sunset Wanderers to come through.
These cards have real names, Flake. I don't know them. The cards have real names. It's not necessarily a sheep.
Sheep admirer, we'll say.
A lover of sheep. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, Paya is a good shepherd according to his title, so we don't.
It's true.
We don't king shame. We've established this, but look at all those golds in deck. No Usurper, no Joachim. We do get the Carcass.
My man, that's like you called it there. And again, getting through the defender is one way to start this process. The question is was that Yen's Invocation better than the Cupbearer here? Because the Cupbearer is worth 6 at this point, but the Yen's Invocation would have been worth more. So I'm curious if that was the best move. However, you are going to be playing 2 more elements of Assimilate with the Duchess and the Coup de Grace.
So the part of the reason I think this is the case is because what you don't want to happen is to Yenvo that, and then when you coup Roderick, you don't want to get the defender. It kind of clogs up your Roderick draws, right? You'd rather go ahead and, let's say in this case, have it guarantee Usurper or Brathens because they're worth more points. Unfortunately, the Cow Carcass here is just not going to be a lot of value, but that Fangs is a brick otherwise, though we talked about it before. You have the option of using Anna to recycle, but you need those locks. You need the locks to answer Colgrim, otherwise you straight up lose the game without it, I want to say.
Look how nasty that was. Again, dropping the location. We're going to protect the Snowdrop on the right, drop in that son of a bee on the left side, and that Cow Carcass was not exactly the home run it may have looked. Again, those 2 tall units that were just right next to each other. There we go. Coup de Grace is used. Roderick comes out. We're going to scoop with the Snowdrop now, and the lead is a abysmal 19. It was a lot more than, it was a lot more than that. This one is far from over, but keep in mind, Paya's still sitting on a gigantic Wanderers there, man. That thing has started at the beginning, and it has just continuously sidestepped its way to relevance. It is a big, extra flavors on the board. So many gigantic point pockets that, something like Masquerade Ball can take out, 1, 2, 3 massive targets, but it has just been hit after hit, Beatles style, for Pajabol as he just continues to jam these massive points.
I mean, I feel like this one has been over for a few turns here. There's really just nothing left to do. I wonder if Kole taking the avenue of just saying, you know what, I'll figure out Kolgrim when I get to it. Maybe I try Yenvoing it later. And in the meantime, I try and tactical decision through Anna to try and recycle my hand. I don't know if there was a proper approach. I don't know if it really makes that much of a difference here. I mean, best we're going to get from leader is what? Usurper, I would say. And Kolgrim just says, it don't matter.
The problem is with Usurper is you're one of the rows are completely
On top
clogged
of that.
anyways. So, hey, let's go take a look. Why not? Who knows? Maybe there's some magic in there that we can find. Oh, hey,
Wow.
look, it's all
Wow.
the trash. Wonderful. Kolemoen looking at his head and just keeping what he had. Why not? There was absolutely nothing of value in there. Cloggers just making that card draw look absolutely terrible.
Going back to what I was saying before about maybe the right play was that tack decision earlier, it wasn't. It clearly wasn't. It didn't make a difference in the world because that was absolute trash.
Yeah,
Cloggers doing what it does best, clogging.
No, I mean, when you're there and then at the end of the day, I mean, Cloggers is a twofold kind of, pain in the ass. It's not only is it going to be generating a lot of points, Sunset Wanderers is going to get a lot more runway to build up. You've got all kinds of stuff. But at the end of it, I mean, if you're looking for that Hail Mary pass, if you're Kolemoen, and the stuff that you're picking up is literally just, free range, whole grain, wholesale garbage. It's not going to help you out. And that's the tough part about it, as you can see. Cloggers just doing it in two different ways, just points and just messing up your draws. And Pajabol back in this one, just dunking on Kolemoen there, who made that interesting play of dropping in the Masquerade Ball in round 1, Chris.
And that's it. You know what? When we talked about it before the game and we said Kole has some insider knowledge on what this deck looks like, has played against it before, I think, despite the fact that dropping Masquerade Ball in round 1's a bit wonky, I don't think it was a bad play because of the ideal situation of allowing 2 sets of mulligans to go organize that hand. Unfortunately, Kole was not a talented lad in that one and drew junk after trying to fix his hand with Morvan and getting more junk. So, I mean, when the cards are not there, there's really not much you can do, especially when you've got 2 Snowdrops, Wanderers, and all the rest of that jazz. So there we have it. Things are back tied up 2-2. We've got a series. Yeah,
we got a series. And the part of it is that also, when it comes down to it, it's like, yeah, you know what your opponent's deck is, but it's kind of like being in the batter's box. Like, okay, I know he's throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but if you can't put the bat on the ball, if you just don't have it in you, it doesn't matter what's coming your way, whether you know what it is or not. You just can't do it. You just have nothing to, to shut it down. Basically, in that situation, Pajabol just got the job done. It's all squared away 2-2. We've got game 5 coming. Let's see what both players are bringing to the party. I like this matchup, Chris. Take a look at this. Force of nature versus Nature's Gift. Nature times 2.
So much nature. So many Wanderers back in this list. Got Wanderers on both sides. Koshjay can do a lot of work, but playing against Nature's Gift here, because it is a non-devotion list, you're going to have access to Heatwave. Becker's Rock Slide. Now, that is a little bit of a blast from the past, but again, closed deck list means that, in this kind of situation, Kole's Koshjay might just eat one. Because I think that Pai is going to know pretty quickly what this Force of Nature deck is trying to do, and something like Rockslide can answer pretty darn quickly. So you've got the usual after that, looking for that thick gourd at the end of the day with your Rebukes and your Forest Protectors for points. But She Who Knows on that Force of Nature side, alongside the Ratcatcheress and all of that, is going to be looking to gain some of that carryover and Koshjay for probably like a mid-range or a mid, like, what, you want 5 or 6 cards for Koshjay in round 3? That feels optimal to not overswarm, but can just absolutely spit out the points here. So it's going to be a little bit of a point slamming type of matchup, but I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, there's a lot of control elements in this Nature's Gift list. Let's not forget. I mean, Karathi Heatwave and like you mentioned before, right? There's the Becker's Rock Slide, and answering those that big play, right? I mean, with that force of nature, Karen Thier into Koche. Koche comes in with a little help from the leader ability, dropping a Fat Boy on the board. It gets out of hand really quick, and it's not like those larvae are in circle of life range where they used to be. You got to dish out some pretty big removal to get rid of them now. Nature's Rebuke is the cleanest way to do it. But, I mean, gone are the days of just your opponent opening up with the larvae and you just drop a circle of life and get rid of one. That's no longer a situation. So let's get a look at the board. Let's see what the score is at. As we see, it's all squared away, 2-2. I mean, does this surprise you? They're both world champions, and they both want to get the they both want to win that unification title, my friend. They want to hold the belt, and there it is. Each player coming through. It's Pajabol's turn with the Scoia'tael list against the monsters of Kolemoen.
Now, this could be a turning point in this series. We saw Kolemoen get his Scoia'tael deck through, and arguably, ST is possibly the worst faction right now. So getting that through early is definitely something that feels good.
That is some shade. Don't let Berja hear you say that.
I said possibly. I said possibly.
Possibly. Yeah, you got. If you leave a little sort of room for argument.
Arguably, yeah.
Exactly. You say allegedly. Allegedly.
It might be. It might be. And if it is, not making any statements, leaving it open to interpretation. If it is, and Paya gets this through and gets ahead 3-2, he's got to be feeling pretty good about taking this all home. He's got to feel good about it. There is the Dunka opener, the famous Dunka opener. Double larva, though, on Cole's side, which can absolutely produce some points.
All right, well, the fun part about this whole matchup is that even though it is closed deck list, when you're running into this Force of Nature list, you know that control is not on the menu. You know that a lot of your stuff is just going to be left to its own devices to sort of just go ahead and churn out points. Now, the problem is that Dunka is going to be putting points in the hand, but you're basically dropping him into 2 Hamadryads and a Sorceress. These are probably cards you want to play in this round anyways, so you're going to have to sort of nurture one of those cards for a while to allow it to live. And as you can see here, Paya knows, like, you're not running natural selection probably. I doubt you're going to waste a parasite on this. So do I just leave this out here free and clear? Absolutely. Absolutely, I will. So we're going to see it's going to probably be a barn burner in this round. The issue is going to be whether Paya wants to preserve that Wanderers again, and same with Kole.
Yeah, I mean, looking to play on that left side, but if you go down to Paya's side, he wants to play that Dryad's Caress on the Hamadryad. He does not want to have to commit it from the leader because you want to preserve that for later, knowing again that control is really not on the menu. What are you going to see? You're going to see the Damage Crone being your best bet for some control. But Paya's going to have Heatwave, going to have that Rock Slide, a couple Rebukes in a circle. So there are things that can come out of hand that can do a little bit of work. But, I feel really good if I'm Paya right now. You've got the Caress, comes out to the left of the Wanderers. You've got Tempering, also comes out to the left of the Wanderers, though. Staring down the barrel now of 4 Indrega Larva does not feel particularly good with just about every card in Cole's hand playing for 4 additional points.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you're getting a little 4-point hat on every card you play, spread out through those Indrega Larvae. It's tough to sort of keep up. I mean, even with the Symbiosis your bonus that you're getting, it's not that great. But you saw there, Paya just insta-tapping the Dryad's Caress on the Hamadryad. Of course, you could put all your eggs in one basket in this matchup because there's going to be no Heat Wave, no Tall Punish from Kolemoen's side. It's literally going to be a shootout here as both players are going to see how much they can drop in. Now, with one Dryad's Caress gone, dropping that lock feels okay because at the very least, what you're looking to potentially do in this case is you're going to be maybe purifying it again if you have one, but you're going to be purifying, but you're also going to be scrubbing out 1 point of vitality. So it's a little bit of value, but the lock there is okay. I feel just, keeping one of those in check as you go ahead and trigger more Thrive. The difference is like you mentioned, the Crones with the damage, if you want to get to the damage Crone to make sure that you can get some stuff going, you got to open up with Brewis, and that's not in hand. Not to mention, I see a Ghoul there, and the Ghoul is likely going to be looking to eat one of those Gan Cans, and if you don't have a setup for the Gan Cans, which you don't have right now, because you got no relics on the board. So that's just kind of a so-so card right now.
It's very awkward. And again, we've talked about Wanderers so often this event, but it's literally the exact same situation now where you're going to have to play cards to the right of it. Do I want to play Onero? No, because I don't want to play Wanderers. I want to play a Relic, but in reality, I'm not getting a boost off of this. So I'm playing the Gankan for 5. It's going to get the boost on the Larva. But the problem is when I eat it later with the Ghoul, it doesn't feel good either. So it's very awkward. He can't play the Caranthir, can't play the Koshchei, doesn't want to play the Oneromancy last turn, can play it this turn, and can't play the Ghoul either. So gonna get a little bit stuck here. Maybe trying to play those Larva early, saying, "Hey, look, I got a lot of points. Maybe you should get out. Maybe you shouldn't force me to play too many more cards because you know I have the points." Whereas coming back on this situation, Paya just says, "My hand is so good, I'm gonna do whatever I want, and you can't stop me." And that looks just like the case. Huge extra points there on the Hammer. I don't think there's any way Kohli catches Paja here, and just probably wants to preserve that Wanderer, so might be looking at the pass here.
That's possible. I think that's probably. I mean, you could always play one more, especially if you have all the thrives on the board. Maybe you play your Crone. The Crone's going to come out with a 4-point help on it, so the pass is a good idea here. But I mean, as you see here, no fear, going full Scrooge McDuck greed sauce on this one, putting the boost and the vitality in the Hamadryad that was just going to go ahead and grow. Kohli feels okay here. I mean, you saw a lot of these major point producing cards out of the way. Both Hamadryads are gone. So, why not? Let's just keep going. And there was always the argument maybe Kolemoen goes ahead and plays She Who Knows there, but in a match where you may have there's a Sunset Wanderer, so it's not Devotion, which means there's probably a Heat Wave in there. So you don't want to just commit a She Who Knows in a turn where it could just get scrubbed away, and that is a problem later on. So that is definitely a consideration for Kolemoen in that case, but you're not going to risk it in a round that you're probably giving up anyways.
Exactly. So you're flipping a coin, hoping that the shoe nose comes out and sticks. If it does, you're in much better situation. If it doesn't, you've just literally thrown one of your essentially win conditions in the toilet. You have to assume that that heat wave is always going to trade with She Who Knows, and Paja will keep something like a rock slide for the Koshchei. Interesting here. We're gonna go and just take the pass going into a long round 3. Now that's gonna do 2 things. First off, She Who Knows is now completely worthless, right? Because you do not have any carryover, no resilience. Doesn't matter. There's no round 4. But you're also going to give that risk of overswarm on Kole's side, because the longer that those Koshcheis stay on the board, they're going to fill up the board with Larva, and it's going to be problematic when you start getting into a 10-card round. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. If Paja just feels good about removing it, a Rebuke takes one out, a Rock Slide takes one out. He's gotten the carryover points from Duncan in round 1, feeling pretty good going into round 3 to slam points.
This is an awkward one. I mean, he's looking at the cards now. Kohli is with Maxi. It's draw, mulligan. What are you hanging on to here? You're probably tossing the Ghoul. But you're picking up the Ratcatcheress and one other of the Crones. Now, what does that leave on the table? It leaves She Who Knows on the table, another Crone, and your Defender. So it's anyone's guess if he did take the shuffle here. But if we do not see if we do not see the Bruxa at the top, then we'll know that he took the shuffle, and then it's really up in the air as Kohli here takes a quick stretch, getting all of his chakras aligned. As if he took that shuffle, he's looking for gold, and mulligan away that Gankan. Oh, he kept the cards. Okay.
Kept the cards.
So he likes the Ratcatcheress. He's going to mulligan the first one into a Crone, and I believe the card after that, I forgot what the card after that was.
But
I
not
think,
an Apprentice.
I don't think I think it was an Apprentice, right?
Was it Apprentice and a Ghoul, possibly?
It was Apprentice Ghoul. Yeah, it was Apprentice Ghoul. So in this case, I think you toss the Gankan, pick up the Apprentice. That has the biggest ceiling potential in this. The problem is Kohli's thinking, is that gonna get eaten up by a card here? All right, he's okay. Sorry, I forgot that there was the Endrego Worker in there, so that's a good one to toss as well. Yeah, this looks optimal. Now, it's also worth noting, Chris, that despite the fact that Paya has all these big card removals like Rock Slide, I mean, you can only remove so much. If you're using a Rock Slide on a card like Witch's Apprentice, you're feeling good if you're Kohli, because that's just scrubbed out and gone. That's a Rock Slide that won't eat up a Koshchei. If you're using Heat Wave, let's say, on a tall card like that Witch's Apprentice, There's so many cards that have such high ceilings that Kole is just going to walk away from this with multiple threats that have such high ceilings.
Exactly. So, but the reason why, Flake, you're talking about the control, let's say, aspects of Paja's hand, but keep in mind, right, the fact that Paja's playing a point slam deck as well. So removal is important for sure, but when you're dropping your Sunset Warriors, Wanderers at 13 plus points, you're gonna have a thick gourd at the end. You're gonna have a Forest Protector come down with, let's say, a Rebuke or another. Actually, I don't even know if there's a Rebuke in the graveyard, but you just have so much point slam that you can bring out that all you need to do is make sure Koshi doesn't get out of hand, and
first thing
guarantee Koshi doesn't get out of hand.
Well, that's it. It's the out of hand part. Like, you're gonna have to basically start responding to all these things as they come out, because the second that he's in threatening mode for like Sabbath, then you've got double Witch Apprentice that are just gonna go out of control. I think if you're Kole here, you want to jam out as many big points as possible. If he gets lucky and that Sunset Wanderer ends up on the front row, he could follow up with a Witch Apprentice, and suddenly that bad boy is going to tick for a long time, as unfortunately Sunset Wanderers decides to go ahead and misbehave. Back row wants nothing to do with these monster scum.
So you're going to have to, at a certain point, come out and just heat wave that defender, right? There it is.
Yeah.
Because there's no other way of getting behind it. So you just want to go ahead, clean that up, and make it nice and safe to work through. So, Paja, again, if I'm in his shoes, I'm feeling pretty good with that Rock Slide, feeling pretty good with that Rebuke to answer the Koshche plays that are coming. And again, closed deck list, but Kole is playing a fairly common meta list, not too many surprises in it. Whereas that Rock Slide for Paja feels pretty darn nice. So I think that's one thing that's going to be a bit of a surprise that Kole will not be expecting. Probably figures with that Heat Wave gone that at least one of his Koshches is going to survive, but that doesn't look like it will necessarily be the case.
And he's lining up a beautiful Gancan there. There's two Crones, one next to the other. But yeah, again, the detriment of not having Sabbath is that every damage done to that Rat Cattress is going to weaken it by 1. And as you see, it's going to still take a little bit of work. Now, again, the fact that the Sunset Wanderers ended up in the back road really kind of slows down what could have been an ideal sequence here for Kolemoen to drop the Witch Apprentice. Now that grows to 6, and suddenly Pajabol will have a problem. But it's going to be playing, the thing about this case, Christo, is the fact that Pajabol is going to be playing catch-up from the get-go. He's going to have to just start jamming cards to just keep this in check. You're not quite there yet. You're not at Sabbath yet, but god damn it, you are close. So Paya has to continue to rail points on this. And I feel like the option here might be you just drop the nature's not nature's gift, sorry. The
nature.
Yeah, the shaping nature maybe on your sorceress. Look for a nature spell and start again chipping away at that front row. The front row point total, as you see, they're both Crones. It's not as big a bowl of soup as it typically is.
Missing one there to fully fill out that big, thick bowl of soup. But I do appreciate putting them next to each other so they do, get to interact just a little bit. But you mentioned Pi is always going to be playing a little bit defensive. However, if Kole doesn't get to Sabbath on that front row, those apprentices are really not going to do a whole lot. They're just going to kind of chill in the back. So taking the extra point by hitting the Cattress gets a tempering, probably not exactly what he wanted to draw. But again, it's another nature card's going to give him another Wandering Treant, another Ent. But, at the end of the day, it's going to really come down to those cards answering the engines that Kole is not too far from dropping with the I believe it's Adrenaline 4. It's going to be looking to come down next turn. So that Apprentice comes down, but just not quite big enough just yet. And that tempering actually is going to make the Sorceress just a little bit better. It gives that possibility for some removal with one of those bronze cards, possibly pulling, let's say, a Rebuke out of that create mechanic.
Yeah, you're going to have to keep that. Maybe you're keeping that Rebuke in the back pocket, knowing that you're going to use it to perhaps go ahead and kill the cloned Koshche. Again, the Koshche is going to come out as a 1 with the armor, but it's going to get boosted up. So it's going to be 2 body, 3 armor, beautifully positioned for a Rebuke to kill it. The thing is are you going to rely on the Sorceress to make that happen? Or not, because you're going to hope that on the follow-up turn, Kolemoen's going to go with Koshche into leader charge. The relic's going to come out, and then he could kill the Koche with the rock slide. But opting in this case, now that's not a bad making a bomb. That making a bomb can move something in the back row, but opting instead to, why don't we just go ahead, again, kill the Ratcatcheress, go ahead, boost up our hand as we go, and Kolemoen, again, this all comes down to the fact that had that Wanderer landed in the front row, Chris, this would have been a runaway train for Kolemoen, as that the Witch's Apprentice would have been way out of control. But this looks like a pretty decent turn now to play. You can play your Gancan if you want, but I think it's time for Koche. It is definitely time for that bug to get some love, as she's glowing red. She's saying, "Put me in, coach. I'm ready to go."
Exactly. And the thing about the Gancan, right, is you need to hold on to that, because that is going to be your highest power unit. You're going to want that to come down to fully proc your cost chase later on in the round. So you got to figure out how you want to sequence this. The Witch Apprentice is already not going to. Big
like
play
this.
there. Smart move.
Fantastic move. That puts that card right out of the range of a rebuke. So the typical way, Chris, that you usually see it is you go ahead, you drop the Caranthir with the Koche, then you wait a turn to follow up Koche and Leader. But in this case, Kolemoen says, I know you're hanging on to a Forest Protector or Rebuke. I'm not even going to let you get anywhere close to that. So what I'm going to do, my friend, is I'm just going to go ahead and put that way out of reach and let you use your big card on a smaller unit, as the follow-up Koche is now for sort of free and clear.
Exactly. So that was a smooth move, knowing that something like Rebuke exists. Now, in a world where Paja doesn't play Rock Slide, Cole has 2 Koches on board, which I think is something that's really, really important to keep in mind. The fact that there would be 2. Oh, there's the high roll, though. Going to be able to fully answer Koche once again with that Apprentice. Not even going to bother, actually. With only 2 cards left in hand, take out the other engine fully. But this is playing for a huge amount of points, because that engine would have taken 2 more times at +4.
Problem is here is, the way that Sabbath works is that only one of the rows needs to be 25 or above. So that piggy doesn't care what's going on in its world. Just all along, it's just kind of just getting the message like, yeah, we're big, we're bad, we're nasty. So don't even worry about it. We're going to keep growing. Piggy flying high there, continuously going, man. A 2-point engine a turn. That is a nasty, nasty card. We used to think in Drega Larvae, Chris, was like the God's gift to bronze cards if you were a monster player, but a witch on a pig is basically how that all changes up.
And the gang represent.
Kaboom, baby. And look how big that gourd got. And, it got in range, but I think that the tail of the tape here is twofold, Chris. Number one, the Sunset Wanderers going to the back row was a blessing for Pajabol, because it gave him a chance to actually stay relevant in this game. Had it gone to the front row, Kolemoen would have just immediately followed up with those Winch Apprentices, which would start ticking, forcing Pajabol to start playing big cards to remove those. However, the second part is that Kolemoen went ahead and immediately used his leader ability on the Caranthir Koche, which put it out of range of a rebuke, which means that Pajabol needed to use that Rock Slide on the weaker of the 2 cards. So very well played by Kolemoen, reading the tea leaves there and allowing himself to go ahead and get past here. It is 3-2 in this best of 9.
We did say that Skoya matchup would be a turning point, because it is, maybe not the strongest of factions, not having as much control. At Point Slime, you cannot compete with monsters. So going on blue there, figuring, hey, I'm gonna try and get some points early and control the rounds. Cole comes back and says, I got this. Here are my points. Here are my cost J's. Maybe that decision not to bleed comes back to haunt Paya in that matchup, because bleeding out maybe 1 or both of the cost J's would have made a big difference. We did see Caranthir in hand, so Cole always had access to 2, so it wouldn't have been as bad. But I definitely think that bleeding there is always an option to try and remove some of those engines, then go short round 3, use Gord as your big fat finisher, and hope for the best. But that is not what happened. Cole up 3-2, and we're about to jump into our next matchup.
Hell yeah, we are. Let's go into game number 6. It is a best of 9, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it is a best of 9. They brought all the factions, and oh my lord, there it is. The White Frost list. I was so excited to see this on the docket, and here it is, a wonderful list. Now, we went from almost no elements of control, actually no elements of control if you don't, I mean, if you don't consider one of the damage prone a control element, to a Madoc White Frost monster list. It's got Heat Wave, it's got Parasite, it's got bombs aplenty. Chris, this is this what monster control is going to look like moving forwards?
This is really interesting. Having, you've got your portal there for your conquerors, which you cannot play from hand. Keep that in mind. You're non-devotion, but you've got the bombs. You've got the red haze that we saw come into play earlier. You got the foglets for some weather. I mean, this is pretty much as control as I think monsters can possibly get. And I love the fact that it's paired with the White Frost leader. Speaking of control, we've got Nilfgaard on the other side of things. Cole bringing Nilfgaard on blue. Deciding that, you know what, this is the second time he's done it. That Imperial Diplomacy being snuck in here could make for a little bit more in the way of proactive play. So I'm excited to see how this plays out. That White Frost deck is very unique. Let's take a peek and see what the players have left after this one.
And Kolemoen's got a slight edge when it comes down to wins versus losses. He's up 3-2 against Pajabol, champion versus champion. I mean, Kolemoen still has some pretty big decks at his disposal, right? You've got the Nilfgaard list that he's bringing in right now, and you still got that Northern Realms list, which is hard to discount. But that's it. That's all. Let's move in. Again, you got to win 5 times, friends, if you want to advance. This is best of 9. If we're going to crown a unified champion of 1 King of the Hill, I mean, we're not going to do a best of 3, obviously, and best of 5 seems a little bit meh. And you know what? Best of 7, well, we'll leave that to the Stanley Cup. We're doing best of 9 because that's how badass we are.
You can't have it any other way. If you were going to say that you are the Gwent Ultimate Master, you need to prove that you can be a master with each and every faction the game has to offer. And to be honest, having Syndicate banned on both sides makes perfect sense because, I mean, everybody and their mother can be a master when you're playing Jackpot.
Damn right. Syndicate is the ultimate Gwent Master. We have just disqualified it because it would be easy mode. But no, both players here have decided that Syndicate in general is just something that they do not want to deal with. But here we go, as Kolemoen's going to be on blue coin. I wonder if he's going to drop the Masquerade Ball like he did last time. Maybe lessons learned. We're not going to do that one again, perhaps, as in this case, Anna Henrietta on Frost is not the same kind of impact, perhaps. I don't know if that's what you're kind of looking at here. But I'm not sure if that's the way you want to do it. Here comes Pajabol following in. Again, Frost is something new in terms of how the leader ability has changed. And it's nice to see some support for the Frost mechanic, giving monsters a unique way to play control, a very weather-oriented control. You still have all the sort of mainstays there that typical control lists will hang on to, stuff like Karathi Heatwave, obviously. But in this case, hey, let's throw in a Parasite for good measure. And you know what? Madoc's pretty cool. Let's throw Madoc in there.
Absolutely. Let's go full control. But, at the end of the day, looking at this, you mentioned Anna Henrietta before, but while this might not be as synergistic as you would like, it is points. Now, you can get into an Anna situation where she's not worth anything at all. And in this situation here, gonna go throw it straight into the Frost. No big deal. Let's poison. Let's threaten. We do see the other poison in Cole's hand, but we have the control on Paja's side. We've got a lot of weather. We've got the Parasite as well, and then you've also got the portal, which is going to play for a very nice 14 points. But keep in mind, the earlier that gets played, the better, because you cannot play those conquerors from hand. So it's not that it's a brick and you can't pull it. It's literally a card that you cannot play. We saw Tia do it earlier this evening, and it did not go so well for her.
Well, I mean, look, you can do it. You'll feel like a complete, dupa, but no, it's not recommended for sure, as that's not the way to do it. Does that portal, I honest to God, yesterday I'm on ladder, I'm playing against a very interesting Scoia'tael list that ran portal with those 7-point dwarves. I was like, everyone's doing it now. This is fantastic. Everyone's running portal for 14 points and thin. I mean, why not?
Absolutely. I think Portal has an option in just about every faction to go and yoink out about 14 points. And it's the thinning as well, right? You know, you have the choice of running something like Oneromancy, but hey, as monsters, you've got options like Naglfar, you have other ways of doing it. So might as well just thin as much as possible, make all those other tutors just a little bit better. And then you're in a situation like this where, hey, I can go and I can find some great tempo plays, especially on red. You know, Pasha could have went and started the round with the Conquerors. However, even without doing that, still sitting in a pretty decent spot here, up on points with Kole doing his own thinning using Dead Man's Tongue there, just boosting up our little Lamp Djinn, who we found out earlier is not a token.
That is true. Full-fledged card-carrying citizen of Gwent. Not generated, but I guess if you want the Djinn to appear, it's not like it's a token that's generated. It's just hidden in that lamp. You just got to rub it out, and it's all good to go. Everyone's happy, right? So quick lock on the that's Aerodin, I believe, as Aerodin is now locked up, still out of position if you want to coup de grace it, but I don't think that's ever on the menu in this case. But still, Kolemoen just sitting in Frost, not necessarily looking too pleased about it, as one of the leader charges is gone on both sides. It's anyone's game. We're going to go ahead, finish up the poison, but you're still behind if you're Kole here.
Absolutely, you're still behind, and now, you know, that ancient foglet coming down. Those little foggies are seeing some more play with Frost. Not the highest tempo play. We still have the Blightmaker in hand for Kole, which is really going to be, I think, the tool that swings things the other way around, but it's still going to be tight. You know, good points there. You may even have to slam Brathens this round to stay ahead. You did mention Aerodin before, so Aerodin has come out. We've got the Winter Queen who has come out as well. So both players spending some gold cards to try and put themselves in a good situation to gain round control here. And I think Paya having the Wanderers in hand and having that Portal in hand are going to make things a bit awkward as the game continues to play down. There we see the Blightmaker come out, keep Kole ahead, but as that Wanderer continues to slide to the right, Paya's going to have to decide what he wants to commit this round.
There was a time, Chris, where the portal was just jam it on the ground and you just summon 2 4Ps right away. And there's no waiting. There's no lineup. You just throw it in there. When the nerf was announced, I know there's a lot of discussion. Like, is this killing the card? Like, who wants to wait 3 turns for their card? Because a lot of times the portal was originally looked as a way to just pull out engines right out of the gate. But with the power creep that's kind of associated 4P cards with just 7 points of jam. Playing it out there as just a 14-point thinning play, Portal has eventually seen a resurgence. Again, when it was first printed, it was just a way to tutor out your engines early on. Either it's you jam out double in assimilate decks, you jam out some of those assimilate cards, jam out double Nausicaa Sergeant as well. But ultimately, it's gone from a engine tutor now to more so just a thinning tempo play.
Exactly. And the beauty of it being nerfed, though, and I definitely thought as well with a lot of people that this card was not necessarily going to survive and not really be used. However, the thing is, it's allowed a lot of other cards to see play. Some of those 4P engines, or they were 5P engines at the time, were simply 5P because you didn't want to allow 2 of them to be pulled with a portal. For example, I believe it's the Sword Masters in Scoia'tael. They do 1 a turn. Well, if we make them 5P, at least you can't pull them with portals. So, it allowed more flexibility in the game. And I love design changes that really open up other cards and other flexibility of other tools. I think that's really, really important for the game long term to stay relevant and to keep a lot of different cards kind of involved here. So, the interesting part about Paya's play here is with Wanderers where they are located. That's kind of the last play of the game here for him. Can't play Oberon, can't play Portal, and can't drop the Parasite because that will summon the Wanderers, and we do not want that. So this will definitely have to be a pass from Paya. And if Kole is paying attention, he knows for a fact that they cannot play another card after this one, so can go ahead and check that out accordingly and decide how he wants to proceed.
But damn, what a big play for Paya. I mean, Paya just went ahead and just stamped his seal of approval on this one. Said, all right, Vader Makar. You bet you never seen this one, mofo. Slams it in, just increases all the frost and just lets not only Kole sit in that frosty goodness in the melee row for a little while longer, but also says, you know what? How about you just give a little bit of love to this ancient foglet that's been sitting here that was so unassuming for a while, because the added time to that frost row also just goes ahead and gets put on top of the ancient foglet. And Kole making a play here, and again, Chris, this is what we're talking about, man. This is where we're saying that wanderer feels like it kind of sways your play, because you don't want it to come out now. And as it creeps closer to the right side of your hand, eventually you're on a clock. You're like, God damn it, like if I play another card in this this powerful position, just means that I'm losing my Wanderer. So it's going to be a very, very big commitment. It's an overcommitment in this round, and it's lost value down the road.
But did Kole just... So using Anna Henrietta got him ahead, then the Frost went and tied it back up, forcing him to play another card and go 2 cards down to win this round. Now, was there not a move with the leader ability to go ahead and say, I'm going to use one of these charges to keep ahead and save the card? Or does Kole just not care? Because we've seen him do it before, coming from an extra card down to win the game. He didn't mind earlier on in this series, so why do I care right now?
That's a good question. I mean, you're right. It might have been a miscalculation. Again, you go through and you get the leader ability, but maybe it's just like you said, Kole doesn't mind going down 2 cards. He might just bleed to perfection here, look for some help, and just, you know what, say, all right, I'm going to pick up some big cards with my Masquerade Ball and these 2 leader charges. There's probably nothing on your board that's going to survive anyways. But we still haven't seen Maddock. No bombs have arrived. There's still the thinning play with the portal for Pajabol, and you got the help of just being there for, having as many cards as you do in your hand versus Kolemoen. Like, things are good. Kole's just going to take the pass here. In all honesty, Chris, I think it's just a matter of Kole down a card is not terrible. Now, I don't know how much he's valuing that leader ability in its fullest over the card that he lost there, but it's a good question.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that played out. I don't know if it was intentional or not. Again, these players are on to the 6th game of this series, so maybe a little mental fatigue starting to kick in. We don't see Frost happen all that often, so maybe it's a little bit of unfamiliarity playing in this this matchup as well. Now we see a couple bombs coming out on Paja's side. We do see the Wanderers. We've got the Portal. We've got Oberon. Feels pretty decent with the Heat Wave as well, which means Masquerade Ball is not going to get too far off the ground. But, Kole's hand's looking pretty nice on the red side as well. You've got your Ball, you've got your Usurper, your Brathens, you've got your Coup for Joachim. You got lots of options, and that Blightmaker might as well be a gold, playing for 11 points. So he's going to feel pretty good. This is going to be a bit of a slobber knocker of a round. Lots of points, lots of solid cards in hand, lots of different directions to go. So I'm curious to see how it's going to play out, because I think there is some redeeming factors on both sides of the board here.
Yes, the slobber knocker, not to be mistaken with the knocker slobber, which is a whole different thing. Nonetheless, there we go. Nice little opening play. Again, the Phantom is a nice piece. Again, just sitting there in the front row, collecting points. It's got the Veil. You can't poison it. You can't lock it. But by golly, can you move it? But moving it doesn't necessarily turn off the engine aspect of the card. Kole here again. You're basically, I mean, what's going on in this case? You've lost your card advantage, but I don't think Kolemoen cares. A lot of his big pieces are still there. You've got Masquerade Ball, Brathens, Coup de Grace, Usurper, Joaquin. You got the total package, man. So really, if it was a mistake, again, this is kind of uncharted territory for these competitive games, because the only time there's been 6th games in competitive Gwent has been as a result of a tie. So it's very, very rare that a high-level Gwent like this in this format is played to the degree and the extent as it has right now. There is going to be a nice little scoop up right there. And again, it's going to put Pajabol on the proactive side, but there's an easy answer for that. It's the Portal.
Portal's going to come right back out, but that also puts the Phantom on top, which means that your Joachim's going to go ahead and grab him. And that's going to get an engine on your side of the board that's going to sit there and generate ticks turn by turn by turn. So that's a great Yenvo, and also goes to show that Kole has drawn all of his golds. So you don't need to have to worry about going ahead and jamming Coup on the Roderick to get access to anything else. You've got everything you need right here in your hand. You've got all the tools you want to go ahead and finish this game off.
Well, there's the first domino to fall. The Masquerade Ball is on the board. It's going to get answered by Karathi Heatwave again.
That Wanderer is dropping, though. Fingers crossed it doesn't draw the Conqueror.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Oh, big locks. That's a good one. Because you got a house for that real nice and tight. Again, you can just drop that on to the Thirsty Dame. But a big piece is gone, man. And that's a huge one. Given the fact that you've already used your Yen's Invocation to scoop a Phantom. If you want value out of that Phantom, you got to use that thing right now, more or less. And Pajabol not running a Northern Wind. And there are always options to just drop a Northern Wind on the the Joaquin that's on your side. I mean, it's definitely not what you want to do in most parts, but who knows, man? I mean, again, fatigue, a factor, definitely. But hey, why not? There's a big Phantom. The first strike of Joaquin comes through, calls in a Phantom on the opposite side. There's an engine ticking now for Kolemoen.
Absolutely. So you've got the Phantom ticking away. You've got Maddock, who found, I guess, the right row, because it's the only row with bodies, and you've got that red haze in hand. With the Phantom on the board, Cole's going to have to be careful of his placements. He has already eaten a red haze once in this series, so you have to assume he's got that top of mind now, knowing that Maddock has hit the board. But we talked about the closed deck list earlier. Up until that card with five cards left in round 3, he didn't even know that Maddock was a thing. Didn't realize that it existed, didn't know it was coming out, and could have played into Red Haze quite easily if that had been delayed by a few turns.
Yeah, oh, hello. Suddenly Maddock appears, and Cole's like, okay. Well, that changes things now just a little bit. Cole's still sitting on 2 charges of the White Frost ability as there's a Usurper clicking the button again. Knowing that this is a more control-oriented list and Parasite is probably floating around somewhere, you do not waste time. You just go ahead and click that button. Every day of the week, you know, eating up real estate in your opponent's side may work in the mirror, but in this case, there's no reason to hang on to it. There's the Parasite. It's going to make short work of the Usurper. There's no other agents that are going to help out Usurper because he is poof, gone, vanished, thing of the past. And now's the time. If you're going to get value out of these leader charges, you got to do it.
You've got to get that Blightmaker out sooner rather than later as well, because you don't want to coup Joachim and accidentally yoink that out. So you're going to want to get that down soon. Knowing that, of course, the Phantom was on top of your deck by playing Yenbo felt pretty good getting that out early, and we see a nice, big, old, thick 14-point Phantom. Paya already played his Heat Wave. That's gone. You know you're not going to see anything like Curse of Corruption or any shenanigans like that go down. Probably the best Duchess you'll ever see come down at 8 points as well there, plus triggering Braden. So point totals are getting much closer. Don't forget Cole was down a card, so he did win round 1, but will not be getting the last say here. But Paya doesn't have a ton, I would say, in hand that he wants last say for, but he was able to set up that red haze by using leader, and that plays for a big 8 points, as well as getting Maddock back out there.
Maddock reappears, but there's no more bombs, so there's not really a whole lot that you're going to get from him. In this case, the 13-point discrepancy. The Phantom keeps ticking, but so does the Frost. And yeah, like you mentioned there, dropping the Duchess on the On-El Conqueror is pretty nice, given the fact that Pajabol had to slam in a 13-point portal to be able to jam out those cards, whereas Kolemoen's like, oh, I am Devotion, so suck it. And then there it comes in and just finds a home for it. But there we go. Down to the last card here, as the coup de grace has to go ahead and hit a home run with that Joaquin. The points are fairly close, but man, is there 2 big plays left in the deck, as it is going to be coup de grace against an Oberon.
So let's see. I mean, we obviously don't have access to what's left in Cole's deck. I don't have the list in front of me, so I'm curious as to what may come out here. But it's going to be a whole heck of a lot of points, and that Oberon, though, is always worth a ton. Plus, the leader ability goes ahead and gives you a few extra on top of it as well. It gives it a little hat, like you often say. So, will that extra card down that Cole went in round 1 that seems like it might have just been a little mistake, is that going to come back and haunt him here?
This doesn't look good enough, unfortunately, as even though the Frost is ticking, we got extra bleed. It looks like 8-point lead is not going to be enough, as there is an Oberon, a big boy play. Again, the problem here is that you can't play the On-El Conqueror.
Is that going to be enough?
This could change the dynamic here, given the fact that the other 2 are not going to tick in. That's a 3-point card and a 1-point card.
That will be a 2-point card, because it does have It is Wild Hunt, correct? And the leader's passive.
Right,
It does
right.
generate Frost. That'll be 3 points as well, though. Both of those cards are essentially 3 points. One just does it in a little bit more of a complex manner. That would be 8.
Hold on a second, ladies and gentlemen. This is closer than it looks. The math comes through. There's a bleed tick as well.
I think it's the bleed tick.
Look at the, oh my goodness, the look
This
on
is
Pajabol's
this a
face.
tie? This is a tie.
Oh boy. Kablamo. There it is, a tie. Now again, we did mention this at the beginning of the broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. We do have some rules for ties. So the way that the ties work, we said this at the beginning of the broadcast, there's no surprises here. If there is a tie, it is counted as a win for both sides. Given the fact that it's a best of 9, it's more of a let's just get through this. Both decks go through, and we're going to see what happens. Again, also there's additional rules after that. If game 9 is a tie, they play both their banned decks, and if that is a tie, they go into the deck builder and have like 60 seconds to slap something together. But hyper unlikely. Nonetheless, ties count as wins for both players, so this might be game, match, point, other sports analogies for Kolemoen.
That is absolutely wild. I am shocked. I did not think that would be enough points. And then Oberon coming down. You figure Oberon's playing 2 cards. That's got to be an absolute grand slam. And not quite. Not quite. Not being Devotion means you can't grab that Conqueror. That is just big old point slam. You've got to grab one of the other 2, and they just are not enough here. That bleed made all the difference. Literally, Joachim pulling whatever was on top of the deck made that difference because it played for the extra points with the bleed. Wild stuff as we get ready for game 7 of this series between Cole and Paya to crown the Ultimate Master.
That's right, and at the end of the day, I mean, Pajabol has got his 3 wins under his belt, technically, as Cole has 4. So it's a game set match. Let's go see what the final decks are that Kolemoen has access to, the final deck, whereas what Pajabol decides to come through with. It's Nature's Gift versus Inspired Zeal. This is going to be the match that Cole needs to win to be crowned the Gwent Duels Ultimate Champion, Ultimate Masters Champion versus Pajabol, who's trying to stick in this one. Now, again, it is going to be a siege dueling list. There's no commandos in here, Chris, versus a Nature's Gift list that rocks a Becker's Rock Slide, a Heatwave, Sunset Wanderers, and the standard procedure of special card action to really pump the tires on that gourd.
Exactly. And so we mentioned earlier on that Scoia'tael game that Paya ended up losing could have been really the turning point when we were all tied up 2-2 because Scoia maybe not able to match up with something like Monsters on Point Slam. So here against Inspired Zeal, we're going to see if that Nature's Gift list can pull it off. Inspired Zeal, while being Devotion, still has the triple duel setup. So that's going to handle a lot of those tall friends that you're going to see, the Hamadryads, things like that. Though Paya coming in on red won't have, let's say, attack advantage to protect the Dunka, so you might see something like Boiling Oil come out and answer. It's going to be a back and forth type of game, I feel, because you're not just going to let things get out of control like that Scoia Monster game did earlier on in the series.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's go take a look at what's left. The damage is done. The massacre is underway. There it is, the carnage on both sides. Both players coming through. Kolemoen's last bastion of hope here is going to be that Northern Realms list, and Pajabol opting in this case for Nature's Gift over the Skellige list. And it's enough time for chit chat, Chris. Let's get into it. And again, I want to remind you guys that we are live, my friends, as Christo and I are bringing you this. Now, the matches were pre-recorded. The secrets were kept in an airtight case. And yeah, there it is. So we are live, friends. However, these matches were recorded a few days ago, but it's okay. It's no big deal because you don't know what happens. I don't know what happens. I legit do not know what happens because I was not part of the recording process. So this is all news to me, my friends. That's how it goes. All right, friends. Here we go. The last game for Kolemoen to win, to move forward. Paya's trying to stay alive, Chris. And on red coin. Who you got in this one?
Man, I don't know. Scoia has just been so suspect. I think Cole, especially with the hand that he's pulled together this time around, is going to feel a whole lot better. We saw the previous round where the previous game where this got destroyed by commandos because he just had no way to answer. Here's going to feel a little bit better. Going to have some plays to open up. Though a little bit surprised that the oh my gosh, I'm just blanking on the name of the card that just flew by and took that last mulligan. I expected that to be a pretty solid opener and then a tool that Shani can bring back, but that reinforced ballista is pretty nasty cakes as well. So getting that out early, protecting it, preventing it from being locked is always a good opener as well. Going to be able to ping some damage out. We see Dunka in hand, but that boiling oil for Kole is looming, just waiting for that to be an opening play to see it get answered.
Now, I don't want to beat off a dead horse, Chris, but some
Please don't beat off any kind of horse, Flake.
bigger brains than mine in chat have sort of parsed out what the percentage is of that loss. Bushy comes in and mentions that it's like a 98% chance that you could win that match. So that 2% low roll is even more painful for Pajabol because there were so many other options. And not to mention, it all culminates to the fact that Onel Conqueror was the win, but you were not Devotion. So it's a tough, pill to swallow for Pajabol. You go through, and given the rules are that a tie means a win on both sides, you push forward. And I mean, any other of that trio, the Naglfar's Taskmaster, the Wild Hunt Warrior, a Bruiser. Any of those, man, would have actually helped out big time. There was the Navigator as well, man. There was so many other options for you to go through and actually pick up a win. Even a Wild Hunt Rider would have been enough, Chris. Oh. So legitimately, when you're throwing dice, you actually, not only did you throw the dice into the sewer, but a meteor came out of the sky and hit you directly in the nuts. That's how bad that felt.
Paj's luck there was about as good as your luck is, Flake. And that is something special. I do not take that lightly. I do not say that lightly at all. I mean that when I say it. But, the interesting part about playing best of 9, I know it's weird. I know it's a lot of games. I know you're playing every faction. It can be long. It can be a bit tiring. The thing that you do see, though, is you see the odds start to even out. Like, that was a bad roll, but we saw a few games where Paya's hand was just absolutely glorious. The way he drew, or Kole bricked a few. So I think over the now 7 games we have played so far, I think you do start to see that even out a little bit. So you don't feel as bad when, you know what, that went poorly, but I probably lucked out in game 3, whatever it was. So the odds do balance out, the hands start to balance out, and you hope that when luck and RNG start to even out, that skill really steps up and helps us determine who the next ultimate, or the first ever ultimate master is.
Well, clearly you haven't been watching me play Reckless Flurry Maddock, because Luck is a cruel bitch, and she cracks a mean whip on my life. That is definitely a true fact. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, in this case, it's going to even out, and that low roll is a 1 in 100 chance to really get screwed that way. So you can kind of feel like, you know what, I got that one out of the way, and there is stuff at stake here. I mean, you're playing for the title of the ultimate champion. These are 2 world champions, season 1 versus season 2 champions playing off against each other here. And that kind of clout, I mean, there's no monetary value that you're walking away. Both of these players have won so much money that, tossing a coin here and there is not really going to make or break their lives. It's more so a matter of they want to win. And when we approached Pajabol and Kolemoen about this, I was kind of expecting one of those situations where they're both going to bring, they're going to slap a deck together, here or there, and, spend maybe an hour just kind of crafting something and not really giving it a second thought. But these are players who actually, they were in contact with me for quite a while, saying when the match is playing, how much time do I prepare? When are the deck lists due? I need to prep. I need to talk to some people, blah, blah, blah. They were in this from the get-go. They were so on board with this, and they were both really gung-ho to win. So it's awesome to see the enthusiasm and the passion. I mean, right now they are locked into the game, so there's not much emotion on their faces, but just talking to either of them leading up to this event, it's nice to see that fire still burns, even if there isn't a money price tag associated with winning.
I think that you've got 2 players who, and I mean, obviously we don't have them mic'd up like we did some of the prelims, but if you look at their faces, they're focused on this game. They want to win. When you have 2 professionals like this, they take everything seriously because it's just the way they play the game. And I love to see it because this competitive nature is what makes Gwent's esports scene so much fun. You have incredible players and incredible characters like these guys. I still remember watching the end of Gwent Masters 1 and Kole cracking a smile finally when he won the game. So it's just been so cool to see. And yeah, knowing that they come into something like this with the same level of preparation is just awesome, because yeah, it's you know what, they're professionals. It is for pride, it is for ego, it is for the title of Ultimate Master, but you know, it's also a spectacle for each and every one of us, and I think they love being able to put on a good show like they are tonight.
And they are put on a good show indeed. I mean, some unorthodox plays. I would, you know, that play where Kolemoen played Masquerade Ball in round 1 on blue is very akin to that matchup of Life Coach versus Tailbot, where Life Coach went in and dropped both Pirates Cove Sea Jackal charges in round 1 and really sort of sold the farm on that round to just secure it, and ultimately won that matchup. So a lot of, I don't want to say unorthodox plays, but very intriguing, unique ways to approach each round that are really outside of the box, outside of the norm that we typically see when we're going and watching, you know, good players play, watching ladder and how it typically sort of unrolls. The standard, you know, turns 1 through 5, which are typically usually mapped out in certain ways. They've kind of threw that away, and the way that they're playing has been quite awesome. As here we are, you know, it's a tight game already. Kole's got the 1-point lead. There is a point of vitality on Pajabol's side. Pajabol does have red coin advantage in here, but a big-time duel here. Again, putting some work into that Dunka. It's going to trade back and forth, but the math checks out, and here comes Hubert.
And that's, you know, well, two things. First of all, what you were talking about before, you know, some of those obscure plays, let's say, that maybe weren't something that we would think of off the top of our heads. So much of that just comes down to, again, them being professionals, them preparing. How many games have they played? How many scenarios have they gone through and played out? And they've just figured out what the optimal play is in just about every single situation. So you see that happen, and you know what? I'll question it, you'll question it, and they know for sure, hey, I need to win this round. I'm willing to commit anything necessary to do it. And you see how it's played out. And then I was sitting here wondering how long it was going to take for something like Anseis to come out and answer Dunka, because every turn that Dunka sits on the board, it goes ahead and just continues to generate more carryover. The Wanderers are going to provide more carryover, and Kole knows it. With Northern Realms, he doesn't have an unlimited cap of points. This isn't points land. This isn't monsters. Hey, I need to keep things under control so I can keep it close, and I can make sure that I can win. You know, I can win my round 3, which is what's important. And here gets the pass. Committing against Ace is a little bit much, but we've seen golds committed on both sides here. That was an excellent trade to make that point differential just big enough to allow him to get through and get out comfortably.
One of my favorite things, Chris, is like when these major tournaments, again, the best in the world, the top 8 players on any given season go and compete against each other. And, you know, when my casting rotation with Shinmiri is up, I like to sit and watch the action live and just check out on all their reactions as the plays are being made, whether it's, you know, Tia or Lionheart or Jaggerus and Spessy that are casting or whatnot. But my favorite thing to do is watch a very unorthodox play be made and watch the people in chat say, that's a misplay. What a stupid play. Like, you know, yeah, that rank 20 logic, as if these players are, you know, like, that's a throw. I'm pretty sure they're not throwing when there's tens of thousands of dollars on the line, but that's just me. But it's always fun to watch that kind of reaction. My second favorite thing to just take in and witness is after like 2 cards are played, it's the people calling up Kolemoen 2-0 easy. It's like, just let the cards happen, man. Just chill out, sit back, you know, pump your brakes a little bit, and we'll see what happens.
Now, Flake, as much as you said, yes, you know, your favorite thing is watching people come into chat and say, the throw. Don't get me wrong. And like, you know, we've both finished top 500 multiple times. We're not bad players at all, but we both sat there when Masquerade Ball hit the table in round 1 and said,
oh, yeah. Okay, well, there's one thing where you can...
I'm not going to go and chat and make a comment about it. I'll just sit there and question it myself so that when I'm proven wrong, I will sit in my own shame and nobody else's.
I know, but I mean, at the same time, it's like we're sitting there looking at string theory saying like, this is bogus. Like, we don't understand it, you know, like we're not there. We don't know all the variables. We don't get it. So in Kolemoen's mind, that might have been the right play given the information that he has. Again, Closed deck list, ladies and gentlemen. Who the hell knows? Nonetheless, again, it has nothing to do with how chat feels. It has to do with how the players are playing the cards. And right now, we're going into round 3, ladies and gentlemen, as this might dictate who is the ultimate master of Gwent. Gwent Duels, the inaugural 1v1 Pajabol versus Kolemoen. Season 2 versus Season 1. Everything's just jumbled, Chris, but this could be it. Kolemoen, I mean, he needs to win 1 round of Gwent to get the crown here.
That's it. A full, like, don't get me wrong, we're talking best of 9 today, but it was a full season of Gwent Esports, and let me tell you, the one that Kole won was not 1 calendar year worth of Gwent Esports. That season went on forever, finally came to an end. Paya then winning the first kind of 1 year esports, winning the ultimate or winning Masters Season 2, and now we have them coming together. So this isn't just a 1 game, 1 round. This 1 round that is coming down to that if Kole wins, he takes it all home. This has been going on for years to bring them to where they are today.
Keep in mind, though, I mean, there's a lot of big plays that need to be made here on both sides, as Kole's just going to go ahead and immediately answer this. Now, this is a twofold situation because you're killing the body and the special card that it's going to produce. But at the same time, Chris, you're also taking away 1 potential extra little sprinkle on that Gourd Sunday, right? It's another special card that you're not going to have access to. I like the Rock Slide here. It takes a card away that Varaxis really wants to connect with. So a Rock Slide is really good there. And now Kole is on the proactive side, which, frankly, if you're playing Siege, that's where you want to be.
Absolutely. The only, well, I mean, I was gonna say the only challenge you're running into, slamming Siege just feels weird because you know your opponent's never playing to the back row, but that's not going to change whether you're playing it now or you play it in 3 cards. They're going to stick to that front row and stay far, far away from that Trebuchet's reach. So we're going to see Siege come down. Don't have any ballistas in hand, so you're going to have that, or sorry, you have a ballista, not the reinforced good kind of ballista, and that heat wave is just going to answer Siege straight out anyway. When we were taking a look at the deck, we did see that Forest Protector is still hanging out in the deck. That means that it's not going to come into Paya's hand unless the Wanderers take that step off that cliff and manage to draw the Forest Protector, because that would be pretty nice if you grab that 1 out of 8 cards left in the deck.
Those great days, Chris, of like, you know, you have a sick day, you're at home, you're watching Price is Right. My favorite was that yodeling mountain climber game, because he would just do the whole like yodel-a-dee-doo-dee-do-doo. So when you say that, and if you overbid, he would fall off the mountain. So when you said he just like falls off the cliff, that's the first thing that came to mind. That is where my mind exists. My mind exists in 1990s Bob Barker style Price is Right.
You and me both, my friend. We were thinking the exact same thing. Natalis, Bombardment. Goodbye, Hamadryad. Feels good.
Oh, the control is real here. I mean, it's a Hamadryad versus, like, the Northern Realms War Machine. Like, how is that going to work?
I mean, but she has a lot of vitality. She's very, very vigorous. She feels good.
She's
that Trey Ant pops into the wrong row. Bad Ant. Treebeard is going to have a talk with you because you're going to go bye-bye right here. But those are some 14-point Wanderers right there. Not
yeah, but what is
at all.
This is it, Chris. Boom! Look at
That's the Forest Protector.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if that'll get us the DMCA. I don't know if that's copyrighted. You might be safe.
Oh, but I mean, like, that is the home run you want to see, my man. Oh, skill. That is the payoff for getting absolutely smoked by RNG with that Oberon in the previous game. That is karma coming back real hard.
Absolutely. But hey, don't get me wrong. Kole still got some good stuff in hand. You know, you've got that Varaxis who may, you know, not sure what target you're going to pick. Shani can get you a Marine. You've got a few options there. But you also have, you know, that Siege engine that just doesn't really do much of anything, just hanging out there. Just like on the other side of the board, you've got the Circle of Life. You know, you've got some bronzes in both hands that are a little bit awkward, that aren't exactly the cards you want to see. But, you know, despite the fact that there are some big boys on Paya's side, the score is not necessarily reflecting that. It is very, very tight here going into the last 4 cards there. Shani coming down. Looks like we're grabbing that Marine. Gives you the guaranteed boost.
Yeah, it's got to be the Marine because it's going to take some time for that the Banart student to not only just charge up to be relevant, but it's it's sitting at that 4 points of body that is just going to get eaten up by a rebuke. Now, Kolemoen doesn't know that Paya just high rolled into that forest protector, but it still sits there. And not to mention, a casting contest is on a Marine is pretty delicious to look at as well. I mean, it's looking real tough. And not only that, but all the nature cards that Pyre is playing seems to be going to the range row, which is just feeding that trebuchet.
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about the fact that in this case, the Marine, because it spends the charge immediately, is no longer a target for removal, despite the fact that the Circle of Life actually would remove it quite nicely here. I wonder if that is ever a play you look at. You say to yourself, well, Kole probably has Veraxis. I probably want to limit their ability to use it. There's no reason not to remove the Marine.
Yeah. I mean,
but there's the casting contest. Let's protect that and make sure that does not occur.
And I think we've said Circle of Life enough times that we owe Elton John and Disney royalties, but totally okay, because look at the firepower that our good friend Kolemoen still has in hand there. You've got the siege engine that you got a machine that you can drop down, but then it's going to be Gerhardt into Veraxis. That feels good. And I mean, you're already nurturing a pretty decent lead. There are some so-so cards. I mean, the Circle of Life is obviously the weakest piece here, but I mean, there's 2 big bombs left in Pajabol's hand, and you still have another wheel on the Sorceress who can get you some help as well.
Absolutely. So you're going to have that protector come down for, 13 points. You're going to have the wheel off the Sorceress, which could be another rebuke, or something else could be another, 7 or 8 points. We don't know how big Gord is, but that Veraxis play, you've got the siege engine that's kind of mad. But Gerhardt also comes down. If you can wait 1 turn, keep in mind the fact that that 1 turn could get you an artifact compression.
Oh, baby, that would feel real good. Really good, but I think Pajabol is just kind of waiting on it here. That's a big play.
What is Paya waiting for with the Sorceress?
I think he's waiting for Gerhardt to double tap the Gerhardt. The Gerhardt's going to come in, and if he doesn't play it right away, you can use your Sorceress and your Forest Protector in 1 turn to get rid of it. Problem is that, I mean, Veraxis is going to get the job done anyways. We'll see how this goes.
Talking about fatigue, there is also not going to risk it, just goes ahead and grabs the point straight away. Paya has also forgotten his last leader charge, only going to get 1 proc off of it instead of 2. I wonder if he just is consigned to the fact that this match is not going his way, and what's coming down here?
Oh, I mean, you do have a Nature's Rebuke on the Shawnee, I think. I mean, you're obviously taking that. I mean, making a bomb's no points at all. It's 1 point with the bleed. The Nature's Rebuke, you can go ahead. I think he's trying to figure out... Oh, and again, poor Tree ends up in the back row. You're going to kill the Shawnee here. It's the most amount of points since you're not killing Gerhardt. Why not? Again, 1 point lost with holding on to that leader. Again, when you're going the distance and how many games that were played here, this is going to be tough. There is a bleed, there is a Veraxis, and there is a Gwent DUELS Ultimate Master Champion. His name is Kolemoen. He takes names, and he kicks ass, ladies and gentlemen. What a series as Kolemoen takes it with that Northern Realms duelist on top of Pajabol Skoyatel. Wow, what a matchup, Chris. There he is, and finally, a little smirk. He finally feels a little bit of relief. I don't know if he's like, okay, I'm the champion and it feels great, or it's like, holy moly, I do not want to do a best of 9 ever again. Fantastic matches, Chris.
I think there's a little bit of a mix of both there. I think he feels real good about taking the win. I also feel like he probably is a little bit gassed. That was a lot of games. That was a lot of Gwent, but was awesome to see how that played out. It was a close series. We saw Kole take the 2-0 lead. We saw Paya come right back and tie it all up. That tie then put Kole into a weird scenario where he actually had the opportunity to win. And there we have it. This has been a heck of an event. We had phenomenal undercard events, some hilarity, some meme, just goodness. And then we go into the serious business and we crown the first ever Ultimate Master, Kolemoen. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations big time to Kolemoen. Again, both of these players played magnificently. The decks were great. The gameplay was fantastic. And again, sometimes fatigue does factor in. These players are always ready for a best of 5, but when you almost double that up to a best of 9, Chris, that is a lot of Gwent to play at a high level to stay focused. Again, they didn't get breaks between this. It was like standard tournament procedure. You go until a winner is chosen. So endurance is going to be a factor in this case, as Kolemoen did manage to get through. This was exciting. It was awesome. I hope that you guys out there like this, because for us, between Chris, 983 Productions, we want to do more of these. So there's a few things we're going to ask for you. Number one, if you like this, follow the channel, follow 983 on Twitter at 983TV, and join the Discord. And let us know who you want to see in the next Gwent duels. We've got some ideas, but we want to hear from you. Who you want to see face off in a best of 9, the best in the world. What kind of storylines exist out there? What's the narrative you want to see? What beefs do you want settled? Let us know.
And I said it at the beginning, and I will reinforce that right here, right now. There is nothing better than casting games. I don't care if there's money on the line. I don't care what's on the line. But when you've got players, and when you have people who have a history, you've got the Ultimate Masters, you've got Lion and Tia, you've got Crozier and Lady J. These are events that just carry so much more weight, and they're so much fun when you can tell a story and not just have a head-to-head game of cards.
Yeah, well, we needed to crown a champion, Chris, and we did. So congratulations again to Kolemoen. He is the Gwent Duels Ultimate Master Champion. And big, big thanks to Miss Lady J and Crozier, as well as Lionheart and Tia for helping us out. Again, big, major ups as well to Mark Theus of 983 Productions, who has been in the background, who put this all together. And what else left to say, Chris? But it has been a blast. Thank you so much for watching. Chris, I'll let you escort us out of this one.
Not much left to say. I think you've wrapped it up all well. Thank you so much to all the players and Mark in the back, making this look just so very pretty. Phenomenal job. But honestly, each and every one of you that has tuned in to check this out, just like Flake said, we love doing these events. We love doing trivia. We're going to have Gwentfinity Wars coming up. So please do tune in more. Follow 983. Check us out, because we're going to have a lot more Gwent action. And thank you all for hanging out with us. This has been the first Gwent Duels Ultimate Master.